Hello friends, today your friend Juggler is going to telling you about, what if Sarutobi gave Naruto the key to success after Mizuki'S betrayal, part 2. Check the creator from link given in the description, and if you enjoy this video then please like, share and subscribe my channel. Let's start the story. The next morning Naruto woke up at 7 a.m. rather the 5 a.m. Kakashi had told him to wake up at. Hopping out of bed he stretched himself out, making sure that his body was in working order after Anko beat the crap out of him last night. Sighing, he made a clone to go and make breakfast while he went to take a shower. Naruto rinsed himself off, turning off the water, and stepped out of the shower. He grabbed a towel and dried himself off when his reflection caught his eye. Looking at the mirror, Naruto frowned in thought. He wasn't sure if his eyes were seeing things, but he looked a little more muscular than he had last week. I can't get seeable results from just this week, can I? He wondered as he looked over at his back, arms, and chest. Even before he started really working towards getting stronger, he had always done a decent amount of exercise, so there should be no serious change in his body's physique. Though, he had recently started eating healthier, so maybe that had something to do with it? That, and maybe the Kyuubi had some hand in fixing his body now that it had the necessary nutrients to actually increase his physical growth. What Naruto did not know was that it was in fact the Kyuubi's yokai that was increasing his growth rate. Because he had been unable to get a decent meal from anywhere except Ichiku's, and their food was not healthy in the least, nearly half of the yokai circulating through the seal and into his body went into keeping his body as healthy as possible with the little amount of nutrients it had. Now that he was eating a decent mix of carbs, proteins and fats, the Kyuubi's yokai had more to work with, thus allowing for it to increase his body's strength and physical attributes more easily. Eventually the blonde just shrugged it off as seeing things in the mirror and went into his bedroom and got dressed. Naruto walked into the kitchen as he finished tying on his headband. He sat down at his table as his clone served him breakfast, grumbling about lazy-ass originals before dispelling. Grabbing a fork, Naruto began to eat scrambled eggs with a side of bacon, toast, and orange juice, just about the only thing he could make that didn't taste like crap at the moment. As he did, he thought about how the test would go. Anko didn't give me any information on what Kakashi's test was. But she did warn me that he was smart and would probably try and trick us in some way. I'll just have to be prepared for anything. He stood up as he finished his breakfast, placing his plate in the sink. He looked over at the clock and saw that it was 7:30. Deciding that he should go to the training ground now, Naruto walked out of the door, locking it before jumping to the rooftops. He arrived at training ground 7 to see his two teammates already there. Sasuke was leaning against a tree, his face etched in a scowl as he did his usual brooding. Sakura was sitting a little distance away from Sasuke, looking like she wanted to talk to the raven-haired boy, but was not sure what to say. "Morning, you two," Naruto greeted, causing the two other genin to turn their heads. "Naruto Baka. Why are you so late?" Sakura yelled as she stood up, glaring at him. Naruto blinked and tilted his head to the side. "I'm not late." Sakura's left eye twitched. "Not late. You dash Sakura," Naruto said, holding up a hand, stopping the girl from talking. "Do you see our sensei anywhere?" The girl blinked in confusion, wondering what that had to do with anything. "No," Sakura said slowly before she scowled. "But what has that got to do with you being late?" Naruto sighed. "And they called him the dead last. Our sensei is not here, therefore I am not late. Remember what I told you yesterday? Kakashi is always 3 hours late to everything barring a rank and above missions or direct orders from the Hokage. That means we technically still have at least 15 minutes before he shows up. Now, if our sensei is not here, how can I be late?" "Well, Sakura looked at him for a moment, unsure of herself. It didn't last as she scowled at him for making her look bad in front of her Sasuke-kun, but she did not reply as she sat back down. Naruto sighed in relief as he went over to one of the trees, sitting against it as he pulled out his book on Fuinjutsu. Opening it up, he smiled as he began reading. The subject itself was easily one of the most interesting and fascinating studies he had started to read, his clones had ever read. And for some odd reason, reading about seals relaxed him. The art of Fuinjutsu, he had read, had a total of 3 levels. The first was that of a novice. This was the lowest level of a Fuinjutsu user, and the one he himself was currently at. During this level, the most important things for an aspiring Fuinjutsu user was how to write kanji well. The importance of having perfect handwriting could not be underestimated in this art. Naruto had learned the hard way that one wrong brush stroke could have explosive results. After one was able to get perfect kanji, they were to work on increasing the speed of their strokes by creating basic seals like containment scrolls and a few others that the beginner's book gave examples of. The second level was that of a journeyman. At this level, a Fuinjutsu user must work on increasing his or her repertoire of seals. This was done by people making long journeys across the world and copying all of the seals they found along the way. Hence the title journeyman. Most people never progressed past this level because they simply lacked the motivation to make long journeys simply to collect seals. At this level, Fuinjutsu users would also begin modifying basic seals and working on creating some of their own. The third and final level was that of a seal master. This was the level that very few ever reached. Naruto only knew of 2 people who had reached this level before. Jiraiya of the Sunin, who wrote the very book he was reading, and Namikaze Minato, the man who sealed the Kyuubi inside of him. At this level, the Fuinjutsu user dedicate themselves to the creation of original and highly complex seals. Naruto had read that the masters of old were so talented that they had been able to create the summoning contracts for the many summoning animal clans that ninja use today. And Naruto had read that the Yondaime had been able to create a jutsu that allowed him to teleport from place to place in an instant through the use of seals. Naruto was absolutely giddy at the prospect of what seals could do once he reached the level of a master. Unlike nin and genjutsu, which was inflexible due to the fact that they had to use hand seals, sealing had no limits on what it could accomplish. Anything was possible so long as one found the correct formula of seals and brush strokes. The only limit was the user's imagination himself. It was because of this and his interest in the subject that Naruto had taken to reading these books himself, rather than have his clones read them. For a few minutes no one spoke. However, Sasuke took some time out of his brooding to spot Naruto reading. "What are you reading, Dobe?" Sasuke asked, curiosity at what could possibly interest the Dobe into reading, and scoffing at the thought of the blonde loser actually being able to read. Hearing her crush's words, Sakura looked over to see Naruto reading as well and scoffed, thinking he was trying to impress her. Naruto looked up from his book, blinking for a moment before he shrugged and went back to reading. "It's a book on Fuinjutsu." Sasuke waited for Naruto to elaborate. When the blonde didn't, he scowled. "And what do you mean and?" asked Naruto, flipping a page in his book. "It's a book on sealing, beginner's level 2. Not much more to it than that." Sasuke scoffed. "Like you could ever understand something as complicated as sealing." "Yeah. That's right. Only Sasuke-kun can understand something as complicated as that. Stop trying to impress me, Baka." Sakura berated Naruto, hoping that it would put her in Sasuke's favor. Naruto growled a bit at the insults, but took a deep breath to keep himself from attacking his soon-to-be teammates. He was already expecting something like this to happen, so it was not as hard to remain calm as it would have otherwise. Feeling calm again, he looked over at Sasuke and smirked. "Now there's no need to be jealous, team, go back to your brooding." Sasuke scowled but didn't say anything as he went back to plotting the many ways he would kill Itachi, aka brooding. Naruto baka. Don't talk to Sasuke-kun like that. Sakura yelled, shaking her fists at him menacingly. Naruto grunted a bit but did not reply. He was beginning to realize that with these two, there was no way for him to win. I guess I just have to prove I'm better than I used to be through my actions, he determined. That's fine by me, I was always more an action kind of guy anyway. A few minutes later there was a poof of smoke near the 3 training logs, and Kakashi appeared within. Good morning everyone. You're late. Sakura yelled, pointing at the man, and causing all 3 males to wince. Sorry I got lost on the road of life. Kakashi replied in an uncaring manner. Sakura turned red and was about to reply when Naruto beat her to it. I know what you mean, Naruto said, putting his book away and grinning at his scarecrow-like sensei. That damn road has so many twists and turns, it reminds me of a roller coaster. Kakashi gave Naruto an eye smile. Well, I'm glad to see someone understands me. Both Sakura and Sasuke twitched. Kakashi ignored them as he reached into his pouch, pulling out a clock which he set on the training post in the middle. Reaching back into his pouch he pulled out 2 bells, which he attached to his pants and then pulled out 2 bento boxes. Now then, I am sure you're all wondering about your test. Kakashi paused for a moment as he gave them an eye smile. The test is simple, you have to get these 2 bells from me. Those who don't get a bell will be sent back to the academy for remedial training. This statement was accompanied by 3 different reactions. Sasuke narrowed his eyes and grit his teeth, determined to get a bell. Sakura paled a bit, her confidence wavering. Naruto, however, frowned in thought as he felt something off with that statement, like he was missing something. But Sensei, there are only 2 bells. Sakura shouted. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Naruto mumbled so low only Kakashi could hear him. The blonde had gone home last night and thought long and hard on his crush for Sakura. Why he had it in the first place, and why he continued to chase after her when all she ever did was hit him. He had determined that he was going to do his best to get rid of his crush, and felt that the first step was to note her flaws, rather than see why he thought she was perfect. He chalked her ability to state the obvious as one of her flaws. Kakashi shrugged. Then I guess that means at least one of you will fail. Oh. And whoever doesn't get a bell will also be tied to one of these posts and will be forced to watch as the others eat their meals in front of you. 2 stomachs gurgled at that announcement, both Sakura and Sasuke now realizing why he told them not to eat. Naruto looked at the other 2 with a smile. Naruto, Kakashi said with a frown beneath his mask. I thought I told you not to eat? The other 2 genin looked at him and glared. Naruto just shrugged. Actually, you said I suggest you don't eat? Naruto said, putting quotation marks in the air. So I figured you weren't ordering us not to eat, and considering if I didn't eat I wouldn't have the energy to fight you, I thought it would be better if I followed my own advice. Who is this kid? Kakashi asked himself, narrowing his eyes. He's absolutely nothing like the reports said. This is getting ridiculous, someone in the staff had to have messed up because there is no way he could have changed in such a short amount of time, is there? I'm going to have to talk with Hokage-sama about the blatant neglect the academy instructors have shown after the test. I suppose I did, Kakashi said, deciding to let the situation slide. Now then, you can use Konao and Shuriken, remember to come at me with the intention to kill or you won't get a bell. But Sensei, what if you get hurt? Sakura asked in shock. Naruto snorted at thinking any of them could actually hurt a jonin. Meanwhile Kakashi chuckled. Trust me, I think I'm good enough to avoid getting hurt. He looked at the 3 of them. Now then, get ready, set, go. The 3 genin shot off, disappearing into the grove of trees. Well, at least they know how to hide. Kakashi thought to himself, only to sweat drop. As a shadow came over him. You know, compared to the others you're a little weird. Kakashi said as he looked at the genin. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the man. Something's off about this test. Kakashi raised an eyebrow, masking his surprise with interest. Oh, he asked. I've never heard of a three-man squad before. Naruto said, looking at Kakashi. A squad always has 3 genin and a jonin. Sensei. Could he have figured it out? Kakashi wondered but shook his head. No, he knows something is suspicious, but not what. Well, aren't you just full of surprises? Kakashi said. However, that's not going to help you get a bell. I guess you're right. Naruto said with a shrug. So, can I have a bell? Kakashi blinked a bit. No, you can't. But good try, I've never had someone use that approach before. Well, it was worth a shot. Naruto said, before rushing Kakashi. He stopped when he saw the Cyclops reaching into his pouch. A weapon? He wondered, only to sweat drop as Kakashi pulled out a book. Is that Ika? Asked Naruto in curiosity as he looked at the familiar book. Kakashi looked up from his book and I smiled. Why, yes it is. Are you a fan? Not really. But I know that Ajisen likes it. And I have a friend who read me a few parts. He blushed as he remembered Anko reading him a few of the more explicit scenes. Your friend has good taste. Kakashi said, flipping a page of his book. Now then, why don't you come and attack me? He turned his attention back to his book. Don't worry, I doubt your ineffectual attacks will even bother me. Naruto shook his head, not rising to his sensei's bait as he charged Kakashi. He reached into his pouch and pulled out several kunao, tossing them at Kakashi before he went through a few hand seals. Kunao Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he shouted, making the 4 kunao he threw turn into 20. Kakashi dodged a few of them and caught the others with his left hand, never taking his eyes off the book. Naruto closed the distance between the two of them, launching a jab at Kakashi's face. The Jonin blocked it with one of his hands, leaning his head back as Naruto came at him with the elbow of the arm he blocked. Attempting to close the distance even more, Naruto tried to come at the Jonin with a kick from the left. Kakashi ducked under it, and Naruto spun around and tried to give him a heel kick, but the Jonin merely swatted the attack away. Naruto was put slightly off balance but recovered quickly, channeling chakra into his limbs to increase his speed. He thought about taking his weights off, but decided against it in case he needed a trump card. The increase in speed seemed to surprise Kakashi, but not enough to actually give Naruto an opening to land a hit. However, when a few of the hits got too close for comfort, Kakashi jumped back and put his book away. Looks like I'm not going to be able to read, he's better than I thought. Well, this is unexpected. Kakashi said in a mild tone. Looks like I'm not going to be able to read. So I guess I'm better than you thought, huh? Naruto asked with a smirk. Maybe a tad. Kakashi admitted. Don't get me wrong though, you still suck. Naruto received a tick mark but calmed down. Remember, I can't let emotions run too high. He's better than me and by getting angry I'll be sloppy, he'll be able to defeat me that much more easily. A thought crossed Naruto's mind. Then again, he probably expects me to get angry. He grinned as a plan began to form in his mind. You won't be saying that when my fist meets your face. Naruto yelled as he charged at Kakashi. Maybe some of the reports were right after all. Kakashi thought as he swatted the blonde's fist away. When Naruto came in with his other fist, Kakashi grabbed onto it and locked the blonde's arm in place. You know, getting angry is the first step towards losing. Kakashi commented in a lazy tone. Naruto smirked. And getting close to me was the stupidest move you could make. Boom. Kakashi's eyes widened as Naruto exploded and forced the copy ninja to use a Karawimi. He's nose bunchin Debaka ha? Kakashi questioned. I thought he only knew the Kage Bunchin, someone had to have taught him that. He didn't get time to think anymore as Naruto jumped onto the tree branch he had landed on. Naruto came at him with kick that Kakashi ducked under. However, his eyes widened as another Naruto tried to knee him in the face. Kakashi was able to block the attack in time, but it still surprised him. Kakashi jumped off the tree, with Naruto right behind him, coming at him with a knee, punch, elbow combo that Kakashi managed to dodge. Another Naruto came at Kakashi from his blind side, attempting to steal the bells, but Kakashi heard the bells jingle when the clone Naruto got a finger on them. He grabbed onto the Naruto behind him, forcing him in front as the other Naruto launched a punch at him. There was a poof of smoke as Naruto ended up hitting his clone. When the smoke cleared, he saw that Kakashi was gone. He glanced around wearily as he looked for the one-eyed sensei. You should never let your opponent get behind you. Naruto's eyes widened as he heard Kakashi's voice behind him. Konoha hidden taijutsu aji, seningarashi, Konoha's hidden taijutsu, 1000 years of death. Kakashi shoved his chakra-encased fingers up Naruto's butt, only for Naruto to explode, forcing Kakashi to jump away from the blast, though he still got singed. Another Bushin Debaka ha? Kakashi thought in surprise. Was I fighting that the whole time, or did he use Karawimi to replace himself? Looking around, he saw that Naruto was not in the clearing. He's a lot better than I expected. He shrugged. Well, whatever, I still have 2 more genin to test, and even with this surprise, I doubt they'll understand the true meaning of this test. Kakashi disappeared in a puff of smoke, going off to look for Sakura and Sasuke. Sasuke found himself seething as he watched the fight that had just gone on. The dope had done far better than he had thought he would. And what were those techniques? Weapons replication, solid clones, exploding clones. Where was the dope learning all this? I should be the one with those jutsu, not him. PST Sasuke. The raven-haired genin stiffened as he turned around and saw Naruto crouched down behind him. How did he get behind me? I didn't even sense him. What do you want, dope? Sasuke hissed, still feeling jealous of the blonde's abilities. Naruto frowned at the attitude his teammate had but shook it off. Listen, don't you think something's funny with this test? What do you mean? Asked Sasuke, frowning as anger and jealousy was replaced with curiosity. I mean, 3 genin going after a jonin. Naruto said as if it was obvious. A jonin is an elite ninja, there is no way a genin can ever hope to defeat a ninja of that caliber. I think we should work together. Sasuke's eyes widened at the suggestion. Work together? With Naruto? He scoffed. I don't need your help, loser. I can do this on my own. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Now listen here, team. This isn't some average jonin we're facing. That man is Hatake Kakashi, and a rank ninja who is said to have copied over 1,000 jutsu. There is no way you, I, or any one genin can defeat him. Hell, there's no way even 3 genin together can defeat him. But if we work together, then we at least have a shot at getting those bells. Could the dope be right? Sasuke asked himself, frowning a bit as he wondered if Naruto might actually be onto something. If our sensei really is that strong, then he shook his head. What was he thinking? He was an Uchiha, an elite ninja. He could get the bells on his own. I don't need your help. Sasuke stood up and glared at his teammate. I can do this on my own. Naruto clenched his teeth as he watched his teammate leave. Damn it! Why is he so set on doing this by himself? I know he saw my fight. Surely he can't think he has any chance of winning? Shaking his head, Naruto stood up and left in search of his other teammate. Truthfully, he did not have much hope that she would be willing to work with him without Sasuke, but he wanted to at least try and get her to cooperate. Sakura stared in shock as the fight between Naruto and Kakashi finished. Who knew that Naruto could actually fight like that? What was going on? The blonde had always been an idiot. The dead last at the academy, there was no way he could be that good. But there he was using jutsu that she had never even heard of before, much less seen. Could Naruto really be that strong? Of course not. Shenaro. Inner Sakura shouted. There's no way Naruto Baka is that strong. It's obviously some kind of trick to get you to think he's strong and fall in love with him. Shenaro. Yeah, you're right. Sakura agreed with her inner self. Well, it's not gonna work. My heart belongs only to Sasuke-kun. The pink-ette stood up and left to find her crush. Maybe if she helped him get a bell she would gain his notice. And then they would start going out, and soon after that they would get married and she would have his babies. Her delusion set in place, Sakura began to carefully walk through the forest, stopping when she heard a twig snap. Sakura looked around and froze when she saw Kakashi standing a little ways away, reading his book. I don't think he saw me. Sakura thought to herself. She was about to continue when a voice spoke up behind her. Psst, Sakura. Turning around, she saw Kakashi looking at her. Then he disappeared in a swirl of flower petals and Sakura saw black. She woke up a few seconds later and sat up. Huh? Where am I? Sakura's eyes widened as she remembered the last thing she saw was Kakashi, and she began to look around frantically. What happened? Where's Kakashi-sensei? S.A. Kara. Sakura turned around at the familiar voice. Sasuke-kun. She stopped and her eyes widened as she saw Sasuke, beaten, bleeding, with his left arm missing, his leg bent at an awkward angle as he leaned against a tree. Run. Sakura. He said in a strained voice as he lifted his head up and she saw that he was missing an eye. S.A.S. Kun. Sakura's eyes widened and she didn't the only thing she could. Kaya. She yelled, before her eyes rolled up in the back of her head and she fainted. Kaya. Sasuke's head turned to the sound of the scream. That was Sakura. He thought to himself before shrugging, she had probably just been stupid enough to get caught by their sensei. He was not surprised by this turn of events. The girl was nothing but a useless fangirl. The raven-haired genin-to-be turned his head when he saw Kakashi, leaning against a tree with his arms crossed. Maybe I went a little too far, Kakashi said. Though, she was said to be the best at genjutsu, he mumbled at the end. Sasuke scoffed. I'm not like those two. Kakashi I smiled. Say that after you get a bell, Sasuke. Sasuke smirked as he threw several kunao at Kakashi, who dodged to the left. Sasuke waited for a moment, expecting the trap he had set to go off. He ended up frowning when nothing seemed to happen. If you were expecting that wire trap to get me, you're going to be disappointed, Kakashi said. After having Naruto surprise him with his improved abilities, he had decided to keep his guard up with the others. Perhaps that was why he had used a genjutsu of a little higher quality than normal on Sakura. He shrugged. It was still a D-ranked one, so he could not be blamed if she was incapable of breaking it. Sasuke scowled as he rushed Kakashi, throwing a punch at the jonin. Once again Kakashi decided not to let Sasuke do anything, grabbing the genin's arms and then throwing him towards a tree. Sasuke twisted around and bounced off the tree, shooting back towards Kakashi as he went through several hand seals, ending on the tiger seal. Kakashi's eyes widened. A mere genin can't do that jutsu. It takes too much chakra. Katon, Gokyaku no Jutsu, fire. Release, Great Fireball Jutsu. Sasuke sucked in a deep breath and blew out a fairly large fireball, sending it crashing into Kakashi. Sasuke landed on his feet as the fireball dissipated and frowned when Kakashi was nowhere to be seen. That should have at least left some ashes, so where is he? To the left? No. To the right? No. Above. Sasuke looked up to see that Kakashi was not there. Below. A voice spoke up from under Sasuke's feet. A pair of hands shot out of the ground and grabbed Sasuke's feet before pulling him down, burying him up to the head. Sasuke looked up to see Kakashi crouched down next to him with an eye smile. I'll admit you're not bad. However, I would say Naruto is about as good as you are. Sasuke sneered as Kakashi stood up. Yeah, you may stand out, but you know what they say, the nail that stands out the most, always gets nailed down the hardest or something like that. Kakashi walked off with Sasuke watching him. There's no way that loser is better than me. Sasuke thought with a sneer. I'll show him the true power of the Uchiha. He looked down at his predicament and grimaced. Just as soon as I get out of this. Kaya. Naruto stopped on a tree branch as he heard the scream, recognizing it as Sakura's voice. Damn. Did Kakashi get to her already? He took off again, increasing his pace. She should be alright, Kakashi's not allowed to kill us. Naruto soon came to the clearing where the scream originated from. Stopping for a moment as he saw Sakura lying in the middle of the clearing, twitching occasionally as she foamed at the mouth. Running up to her, Naruto kneeled down and lifted the upper half of her up and tried to shake her awake. Sakura, Sakura. Naruto said, sighing in relief when Sakura gave a groan. What? Where? Sakura asked as she saw the blur in front of her. Nice of you to join us again. Naruto joked. However, Sakura paid no attention as she remembered seeing Sasuke on his deathbed. Sasuke-kun! She screamed, shooting up and smashing her head into Naruto, who fell on his back and tried to blink the stars out of his eyes. Sasuke-kun! Where are you? Don't worry, I coming to save you, Sasuke-kun. Sakura stood up and ran out of the clearing in search of her precious Sasuke-kun. Oh wow, that head of hers is like hitting a brick wall. Naruto thought with a groan. Standing up, he sighed. I really should expect this stuff to happen by now. Yet every time I managed to get surprised. It looked like he would be doing this on his own. But that was okay, he had a plan to beat Kakashi, it would just take a little knowledge of the man and some deception on Naruto's part. Kakashi continued walking back into the clearing, reading his book as he thought about how his team had done so far. He was honestly disappointed in them. Sakura had fallen for one of the most simple genjutsu he had when, according to her reports, she was supposed to be the best on the subject of genjutsu. Sasuke, he had to admit, was good, he had managed to set a decent trap that might have worked had he not taken the fight more seriously from the beginning, and his taijutsu form was good. But the boy was simply too arrogant, believing that he could actually go head to head with a jonin. Naruto had been the surprise, using tactics and jutsu that Kakashi did not know he had possessed. His taijutsu was also decent, just a little below Sasuke's, but he also used deception, making him better than Sasuke, who simply fought head-on. Not only that, but he had tried to get his teammates to work with him. Kakashi didn't think. The boy knew that the whole point of the test was to work as a team. But Naruto at least recognized that he could not fight a jonin one-on-one with any hope of winning. As Kakashi entered the clearing, he stopped and noticed there was another person already there, standing near the training posts. It was a woman with long black hair and red eyes that held an exotic quality to them. She was wearing makeup that consisted of red lipstick and purple eyeshadow, just enough to enhance her already beautiful features. Her outfit consisted of a red mesh blouse that had one long sleeve on the left, and no sleeve on the right. Over this was a very broad material that resembled bandages and had a rose thorn pattern running along the center of them. Her hands were wrapped up in bandages and she wore a Konoha headband on her head and regular blue shinobi sandals. Kakashi could easily recognize this woman as one of his fellow jonin, Uehai Kurane. Kakashi. Kurane greeted as her red lips curved into a smile. I've been looking for you. Kakashi narrowed his eyes in thought as the beautiful red-eyed jonin walked up to him. Kurane is supposed to be testing her team right now, there is no way this can be her. Running through some calculations, the Cyclops determined who this really was and what was really going on. This must be Naruto using his infamous Warak no Jutsu I've heard so much about. Kakashi appraised the transformed Naruto as the blonde walked up to him. I have to admit, the henge is nearly flawless. However, it's only an illusion, and should only take a simple touch to dispel. He decided to go along with Naruto to see what he would do. Kurane-san, I thought you would be with your team. I'm going to be testing them in a little while. Kurane replied. But I wanted your advice first. Ah. Kakashi nodded his head as if that explained everything. How can I help you then? Kurane gave him a smile. Well, I want to give my team a challenging test, but at the same time I don't want to make it impossible for them. And you want me to help? Kakashi raised an eyebrow. You do know that I'm not the best person to ask something like this. Kakashi smirked beneath his mask. Of course you would know this if you were really Kurane, Naruto. Kakashi moved his hand up to dispel the henge, only to freeze as his hand landed on the red-eyed woman's breast. TTH, these are real? Kakashi thought. His one eye widening. But that's impossible. There's no way this can be real unless. He paled. Unless this isn't a henge but really is Kurane. His hand subconsciously twitched, squeezing Kurane's breast, causing her to let out a squeak. Kurane snarled as an angry look crossed her face. Grabbing a now fearful Kakashi by the front of his shirt, she pulled him so close that Kakashi could feel her body pressing against his. It was making him both extraordinarily frightened, being so close to her now rage-filled eyes, and also extraordinarily hot, having her breasts smashed against his chest. You. Kurane growled as Kakashi looked at her, turning from pale white to red, and back to white again as arousal and fright began to combat each other for the look on his face. You. Kurane's face leaned into Kakaki's, her lips near his ear. Pervert. She whispered in a seductive voice. Kakashi's one eye widened even further, his face turned completely red, even though most of it could not be seen, and steam began pouring out of his ears. Then his eyes rolled up in the back of his head as he passed out, falling to the floor as Kurane let him go, a trickle blood appearing from inside his mask and began spreading across the fabric. There was a puff of smoke surrounding Kurane, before it cleared to reveal Naruto standing there with a frown. Wow, I didn't think that would actually work. Guess I shouldn't underestimate just how powerful this technique is against perverts. He frowned a bit as he touched his chest. It had felt really creepy and gross having Kakashi touch his chest like that in his female form. I'm going to have to look into that, that was just. He shuddered a bit before shaking the feeling off. Naruto shook his head as he grabbed Kakashi and began dragging him over to the training posts. A groggy Kakashi woke up to find himself leaning against the training post. Standing up, he frowned as he looked around for Kurane, and wondering why he could not find her. Did I dream all that? He shook his head at that, knowing it was too real to be a dream. Nor could it have been a genjutsu, as he was pretty sure none of his possible genin candidates had the ability to use genjutsu to that degree. But he knew it could not have been Kurane, especially because his man bits were still intact. He quickly checked himself, sighing in relief when they were indeed still there. If it had been Kurane, he was sure she would have done something horrible to him. Her hatred of perverts was well known. But then, what had happened? He sighed, he would have to figure this out later. Beside him the bell rang, signifying the test had come to an end. He looked down to see his bell securely fastened to his pants. Shaking his head in disappointment, he looked up to see Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke coming out of the forests with varying emotions of disappointment and anger. "Well," Kakashi started, "I have to say I'm disappointed in you three. You all failed to retrieve a bell. Are you sure about that, Sensei?" Naruto asked, holding up two bells and jingling them. Kakashi's, Sasuke's, and Sakura's eyes all widened at what they were seeing. "When did the dope get a bell?" Sasuke wondered, seething at the thought that the dead last had been able to do what he could not. "I don't believe Naruto Baka actually managed to get a bell from Kakashi-sensei." Sakura thought in shock. "I don't believe it. He probably stole it from Sasuke-kun." Shanaro. Inner Sakura ranted as she held a chibi Naruto by the throat, and began squeezing the life out of it. Kakashi looked down at the bells attached to his pants, watching as they went up in a puff of smoke. He must have switched the bells out with a henged cage bunchin, but that wouldn't make sense. Henge is only an illusion jutsu, there would be no way to do that unless... Kakashi's eye widened further as he remembered his encounter with Kurane. That was no henge. That was an honest to kami transformation. But that's not possible, is it? True transformations shouldn't be possible. Even using a thick layer of chakra to create a physical body should not be possible. The difference in mass and weight would mean he didn't just create a chakra construct and place it over himself, but actually transformed into the object he henged into, copying both its weight and body mass. I really need to talk to Hokage-sama about this. Regaining his composure, Kakashi looked over at his three genin. "Well, it seems you did get the bells after all. Congratulations, Naruto." Sasuke grit his teeth in anger as he saw Naruto smirk, while Sakura looked both shocked that Naruto got the bells, and disappointed that she had been useless. "Now, however, you need to decide who to give the bells to. After all, only two of you can pass." Naruto smirked as he tossed a bell to Sasuke and Sakura, surprising everyone. "I'll give mine to both of them. You do realize that if you do that, you'll be going back to the academy?" Kakashi tried. He has figured it out. The Jonin thought to himself. There's no other explanation for this. An extra year won't hurt me any. Naruto said with a shrug. "No," Sasuke said, surprising the others as he tossed his bell back to Naruto. "You got the bells, not me. You deserve to pass, and my pride as an Uchiha will not let me accept this when I didn't actually get one myself. I refuse to accept charity from the dobe. Then I think I should be the one who goes back," said Sakura, looking rather depressed as she threw her bell to Sasuke. "All I did was fall into a genjutsu. Sasuke-kun tried to get a bell, and Naruto got both bells, so I can't accept it, even if I can't be with Sasuke-kun. You two need to relax," Naruto said with a smirk as he tossed his bell to Sakura. "I have a way to make sure we all pass." Everyone watched as Naruto reached into his pouch and pulled out a little orange book. "I made sure to get some added insurance." Naruto turned to look at a wide-eyed Kakashi and grinned. "Either you pass all of us, or I'll have Sasuke show you what a Katon Jutsu can do to paperback." "No, not the precious," Kakashi shouted, getting on his knees as he looked at Naruto pleadingly. "You don't need to worry, you all pass. Please just give me the precious." Naruto grinned as he tossed the book to Kakashi, who snatched it from the air. The three genin sweat dropped. As Kakashi started to lovingly nuzzling the book against his cheek, mumbling about the precious and "Don't worry, you're safe now, precious." Sensei?" Naruto asked, a little uncomfortable with the awkward scene before him. "You kind of freaking me out here." Kakashi coughed as he stood back up, pocketing the book and acting as if he had not just been snuggling a book as one normally would a lover. Ahem, well I guess all of you pass then. You can thank Naruto for that, since he seemed to understand that this test was about teamwork. The other two genin looked over at Naruto, who flashed them a grin and shrugged. Honestly, he had not really known the test was about teamwork. He had only realized that without help, he normally would have never been able to get a book. Thank Kami for perverted weaknesses. Anyway, meet me here tomorrow over at the bridge at 8 AM and we'll begin our first mission as Team 7. Kakashi gave the group an eye smile. Sakura gave a large smile as she realized that she was still going to be on a team with her Sasuke-kun. Sasuke, despite feeling put off at not having actually gotten a bell, smirked as the feeling of having passed pushed his other feelings away for the moment. Naruto grinned, excited at the prospect of telling what happened here to Anko. Right, well, I will see you all later. I have to report to Hokage-sama that we are now a team. Kakashi disappeared in a puff of smoke. Hey Sasuke-kun, do you want to go out on a date with me to celebrate? Asked Sakura. No. Sasuke said as he walked away, Sakura following after him and pestering him for a date. Ugh. Seriously, I just saved them from failing and they still ignore me. I didn't even get a thank you for essentially passing them. Ungrateful bastards. Naruto frowned, shaking his head before making his way to the forest of death. No doubt Anko would want to hear the tale of how he defeated the legendary Hatake Kakashi. Sarutobi sighed to himself as he saw that Kakashi was still not here. Why don't you all start? Kakashi will probably be several hours late anyway. Sarutobi motioned for them to begin. Shiranui Genma stepped forward. Hokage-sama, Team 1 failed. As he stepped back, Aoba stepped forward. Team 2 failed as well. They simply don't understand the principles of teamwork. On this went as teams 3 through 6 failed as well. Go on Kurana-san, since Kakashi isn't here yet. Sarutobi gestured for her to have the spotlight. Kurane stepped forward. Team 8 passed. Asuma went after her, taking a puff of his cigarette. Team 10 passed as well. He took a step back as a puff of smoke erupted in the room. Sorry I'm late Hokage-sama, a black cat crossed my path so I had to take the long way around. Kakashi said as he appeared from within the smoke. Several groans were heard at Kakashi's terrible excuse. Really, you would think a ninja as famous as Kakashi would, at the very least, be able to come up with more plausible excuses. Sarutobi just sighed as he shook off his annoyance. Just give me your report. Team 7 passed. Kakashi said with a shrug. For a moment there was such a complete silence that one would almost think they had walked into a grave. Not even the crickets chirped as everyone stared at the Cyclopean Jonin with wide eyes and gaping mouths. Kakashi noticed the looks he was receiving and sweat dropped. What? I'm not that bad, am I? He asked. A resounding yes rang in the room, causing Kakashi to rub the back of his head sheepishly. Sarutobi looked at Kakashi for a moment before nodding. Very well then. All of you are dismissed. One by one the Jonin began to leave in their own unique way, from Sunshinsto simply walking out the door. However, Kakashi stayed where he was, snapping his book shut as soon as the other ninja left. I take it there is something you still wish to discuss, Kakashi-kun? Sarutobi asked, grabbing a pipe from within his desk. Yes sir, I wanted to talk to you about Naruto, replied Kakashi. Sarutobi nodded as he used a katon jutsu to light his pipe, taking a few puffs. I suspected as much. He's not quite what you thought he'd be, is he? Kakashi shook his head. He's so far from what I thought he would be that I wasn't even sure that was Naruto. First, he was much quieter than I had been led to believe. He seems to still have his moments of hyperactivity, but they seem to be leaning more towards smart ass remarks more than anything. Second, he was a lot better than the reports said. I'd say that he was on par with Sasuke in skill, if not a tad better. Third, he was far more intelligent than he should be. I came in expecting him to be a loudmouth brat with no control over his emotions and no intelligence whatsoever, screaming about being Hokage and ramen. But not only was he able to keep his calm during our battle and managed to use a good amount of deception on me during the test. He also used several jutsu that he should not know, that I know he couldn't have learned, even from the scroll of forbidden sealing, and managed to get the bells. Sarutobi nodded as he listened to Kakashi. All of this is very true. I have to question the competence of the academy staff. Kakashi continued. It seems they let their hatred of the Kyuubi get to them and gave me false information about Naruto's abilities. Sarutobi shook his head. While that information definitely has some bias in it, none of it was actually false, at the time. Kakashi looked startled. At the time, sir. Sarutobi blew out a puff of smoke. You know of the Mizuki incident. It was not a question. But Kakashi nodded anyway. Nobody can learn such a terrible truth about themselves, one that had been kept secret from them for their whole lives and remain the same. I suspect that Naruto used his hyperactivity and general goofy attitude as a way to keep himself from falling into despair because of the loneliness he had felt his whole life, thanks to the foolishness of the village. At first it likely was more of an act than anything, but over time he had been that way for so long it simply became who he was. However, the Mizuki incident forced him to re-evaluate his life and I suspect, force him out of the mask he has forged for himself, so to speak. Kakashi's eye lit with understanding as he nodded. He knew well about metaphorical masks, after all, he was wearing a mask by emulating his long-dead friend Obito, who gave his life to save Kakashi's during the Third Great Ninja War. But if that's the case, then how did he get so strong in such a short amount of time, asked Kakashi. Even if he had a complete 180-degree change, it would still take more than a week to learn most of those techniques. At least 2 months, even for a genius. You know the secrets of the cage. Bunshin no Jutsu Kakashi. Sarutobi commented, making the elite ninja's eyes widen. Of course. Kakashi mumbled. That makes sense. Cage Bunshins pass on the knowledge they learn to their creator when they dispel. And with Naruto's reserves. A powerful technique for learning indeed. Sarutobi nodded his head. And one I suspect, only he can use to its full potential. Kakashi nodded. Yes, with Cage Bunshin his actual potential for learning is nearly unlimited. It would only take a few days to learn what would take others weeks, months for something that would take years. He frowned for a moment as another thought crossed his mind. However, that still doesn't explain how he knew some of those jutsu. Cage Bunshin I can understand, but Konao Cage Bunshin? Bunshin Debakaha? Even with the Cage Bunshin no Jutsu at his disposal, it would be impossible to learn those techniques on his own. Ah! Sarutobi said with a small smirk. Now here's where things get interesting. It seems that one Arkunoichi, one MIT Irashi Anko has taken a shine to young Naruto. That's how he knew all those things about me. Kakashi realized, remembering Naruto's little rundown of him during their first meeting, then he paled. Oh no. With those two together? Sarutobi nodded. A most interesting pair if I do say so myself. Interesting? Kakashi questioned in a slightly incredulous tone. With Naruto's penchant for pranks, and Anko's sarcastic humor and lust for blood, those two are a walking disaster. Perhaps. Sarutobi admitted with a shrug. However, Naruto has matured quite a bit since graduating. I don't think there is anything to worry about. So you're saying I should leave them be? Asked Kakashi. Naruto is my genin now, I don't want her. Kakashi. Sarutobi said, his voice hardening a bit. I do not want you interfering with those two. It may seem strange, but I think their friendship will do each other some good. Both are outcasts with only a few friends, and both understand one another. The old Hokage paused to take a puff from his pipe. As for Anko training Naruto, the council wants you to train Sasuke. It's the whole reason you were selected for this squad. And while I do not approve of favoritism, we both know that the council will not let this go, and I have no desire to listen to pointless bickering. He had already argued with the council on this subject for hours. He had of course already planned on having Kakashi be Sasuke's sensei, and Kakashi had requested Naruto, not only due to his rivalry with Sasuke, but also because Naruto was the son of Kakashi's sensei, the Yonadaime Hokage Namikaze Minato. However, the council wanted Kakashi to neglect Naruto's training in favor of the Uchiha. Sarutobi had fought over this subject for hours, needing to remind them that he was the Hokage, and only he could tell his Jonin what to do. However, he also knew they would bring this up again, and needed to appease them in some way. Sarutobi held up a hand, stopping Kakashi as he was about to speak. Your hands will already be fairly full, and while I am certainly not saying neglect the other two, I am telling you to focus on Sasuke. Give the two some direction, help them where you can, but give Sasuke more general attention. We both know that the boy is a flight risk. Kakashi nodded at that, having listened to the boy talk about himself and hearing his desire to kill his older brother, Itachi. The Cyclopean Jonin knew the boy would be easily seduced to betray the village if offered power. We need to keep him preoccupied until he can get comfortable and familiar with you and his teammates. Hopefully he will begin to think less about revenge and more about protecting the village. Sarutobi emptied out his pipe and put it back in his desk. But if he's a flight risk, teaching him would be dangerous, Kakashi commented. He already planned on teaching the boy some things, and if he proved to be competent, some of his more powerful jutsu. But that was only if Kakashi was sure Sasuke would not use them against his comrades, something he was not sure the young Uchiha would do or not with the boy's current state of mind. Sarutobi nodded. Yes, it is. That is why you will not teach him anything dangerous until you are sure he can handle the responsibility. Kakashi nodded. I understand, Hokage-sama. I have one more question. You wish to know about Naruto-kun's transformation? Yes. Kakashi nodded. Understandable, given that his technique should in all essence be impossible. Sarutobi sighed. Unfortunately, I do not have an answer for you, though I do suspect that the Kyuubi's yokai may have something to do with his ability to transform into something down to the letter. That would make sense. Kakashi mumbled. Maybe Kyuubi's yokai enacted some kind of change in the composition of Naruto's chakra, and allowed the blonde's body to literally take on the shape of another being or object. Are there any more questions? Kakashi shook his head. Good. You are dismissed, Sarutobi said. Kakashi nodded as he left, disappearing in a puff of smoke. Sarutobi sighed as he put out his pipe, turning his attention back to his paperwork, only to see the stack had somehow doubled during his discussion. How did it get so big? Sarutobi glared at the paper, wishing fervently that he could burn it with a katon jutsu. It's mocking me. He bristled. He could practically hear it telling him that he would never defeat it. Curse you for making take up this mantle again, Minato. Ha 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 ha. Anko held onto her gut as she laughed. Oh Kami. She wheezed, trying to regain the breath she had lost from her small fit. She sat up as she got herself under control, snickering a bit as she looked at Naruto. So let me get this straight. You hinged yourself into Nichan and made Kakashi pass out via blood loss and took the bells and his porn. Naruto grinned, rubbing the back of his head. Yeah, pretty much. That's absolute gold gaki. Sweat Sage, I wish I was there to see that. Anko snickered again. Though, you'd better not let Nai-chan hear you used her for something like this. She's been known to genjutsu men for doing less. And believe me, her genjutsu for perverts are horrible. You're not going to tell her, are you? Naruto asked, paling at the thought. Anko tapped her chin as if thinking about it. Nah, she said with a grin. You're much too fun for me to lose, yet. That really doesn't inspire much confidence. Naruto deadpanned. Relax, Gok, I won't rat you out. Anko said, grinning as she grabbed onto him and set him on her lap. You know I'd be so depressed without my fox plushie. Hey Anko! Naruto shouted, blushing as the scantily clad Kunoichi rubbed her cheeks against his. As Anko continued her nuzzling, she ended up rubbing against Naruto's whiskers and, much to Naruto's horror and Anko's surprise, he started purring. Did you just purr? Anko asked, blinking as she stared at him. PFT, and no. Naruto stuttered, attempting to get away from the now madly grinning woman. Not that there was anywhere for him to run in the forest of death. Kawaii. Anko squealed as she grabbed Naruto and held onto him tighter than before, suffocating the poor boy between her rather bountiful assets. It was just another day for Uzumaki Naruto. However, as Naruto began turning blue and red from embarrassment and lack of oxygen, he felt that his adventures had only just begun. Oh make, perverts and pranks, Kurane snarled as an angry look crossed her face. Grabbing a now fearful Kakashi by the front of his shirt, she pulled him so close that Kakashi could feel her body pressing against his. It was making him both extraordinarily frightened, being so close to her now rage-filled eyes, and also extraordinarily hot, having her breasts smashed against his chest. You! Kurane growled as Kakashi looked at her, turning from pale white to red, and back to white again as arousal and fright began to combat each other for the look on his face. You! Kurane's face leaned into Kakaki's, her lips near his ear. Pervert! She whispered in a seductive voice. Kakashi's one eye widened even further, his face turned completely red, even though most of it could not be seen, and steam began pouring out of his ears. Then his eyes rolled up in the back of his head as he passed out, falling to the floor as Kurane let him go, a trickle blood appearing from inside his mask and began spreading across the fabric. There was a puff of smoke surrounding Kurane, before it cleared to reveal Naruto standing there with a frown. Wow, I didn't think that would actually work. Guess I shouldn't underestimate just how powerful this technique is against perverts. He frowned a bit as he touched his chest. It had felt really creepy and gross having Kakashi touch his chest like that in his female form. I'm going to have to look into that, that was just. He shuddered a bit before shaking the feeling off. Naruto was just about to drag Kakashi over to the training posts when inspiration struck him. He looked down at Kakashi and grinned mischievously. Kakashi woke up with a groan, wondering what had hit him. He tried to move a hand up to his face, only to realize that he could not move his hand. Come to think of, none of limbs are moving. Kakashi opened his eyes and paled at what he found. He was currently tied up with grade A ninja wire in such a way that he could not even wiggle. But that was not the worst of it. No, what the worst part was that he was hanging over the female side of the hot springs. He also recognized several of those girls, those ones being Inyazuka Hana, Mit Irashi Anko, Uehai Kurane, and Uzuki Yujio. Even worse, all of his Ika books were hanging with him. A little ways away, the Naruto Kage Bunshin who had been left there grinned when he saw Kakashi wake up. He took out a konao and cut the two wires, letting both Kakashi and his books fall into the water. Kakashi hit the water with a splash, coughing and sputtering as he came up. As he felt the bonds from the ninja wire loosen, he became acutely aware of the killing intent being directed at him. He paled as he looked up and saw all of the girls leering down at him. He took a quick gaze at their beautiful bodies, knowing he was already a dead man. Hey girls. Great day to go to the hot springs eh? Yes, it was a great day. Kakashi. Kurane replied, her eyes narrowing and her hands getting ready to do the hand seals for one of her worst genjutsu. Until you had to ruin it. Hana growled, her nails lengthening into claws. Yojao pulled out a sword from somewhere on her persons and pointed it at Kakashi's throat. You've disappointed me, senpai. And now ladies, can't we talk this out? Kakashi pleaded. Oh. We're through talking. Kurane said. Neibun Genjutsu, Shiken wa Sudo Akumu, Secret Genjutsu, Pervert's Worst Nightmare. Soon screams began to echo across Konoha as Kakashi was subject to getting chunks of his body clawed out, getting cut with Yojao's blade and being forced to have a lap dance in a gay bar by Kurane's Genjutsu. Anko grinned as she watched the fireworks, before turning back to the Ika books she had found. Oh Manashi, I love the way your cock is searing inside my pussy. Cried Anko as her lover Manashi plowed into her. I know you love it, you're my little cum slut Anko. Hey wait a minute. Anko stopped reading as she reread the names. Yep, there was no mistaking it, that was her and Kakashi with just a small difference in the lettering. Oh. That does it? No one writes about MIT Irashi Anko without her consent and gets away with it? Somewhere in Hai no Kuni, Jiraiya felt a shudder of fear run down his spine. Senejashu. Several snakes shot out of Anko's sleeve and latched onto Kakashi's balls, causing his screams to become even louder. Several hours later Kakashi would be found lying outside of the hospital in a heap with several thousand lacerations, claw marks running down his face, neck, and chest, black and poisoned testicles, and muttering the words, "It's not real, it's just a genjutsu. Just a genjutsu. Katon, Gokyaku no Jutsu, Fire Release, Great Fireball Jutsu, AB Rank Katon Jutsu." The user creates fire chakra within the throat and exhales it to create a large fireball. This is a sensory jutsu normally used for distraction or wide-scale destruction. It is also used by the various hunter ninja squads of different villages in order to burn the remains of missing ninja that have betrayed the village. Konoha Hiden Taijutsu Aji, Senin Garashi, Konoha's Hidden Taijutsu, 1000 Years of Death, S-ranked Kinjutsu. One of the deadliest jutsu known to man. This jutsu consists of you getting behind your opponent and shoving chakra-enhanced fingers up their rectal cavity. This causes opponents to fly into the air and extreme pain in their ass, as well as untold embarrassment. Naruto pulled out another weed, throwing it onto a growing pile beside him. He looked over at his teammates, who were both doing the same thing, then over to Kakashi, who was reading his porn. Naruto growled in frustration as he went back to pick up another weed. I'm going to kill Anko for not telling me about these D-rank missions. The blonde promised himself as he continued. When they had first gone to get a mission, Naruto had been excited at the prospect, hoping that it would have taken them to some faraway land where he would protect a princess, or storm a fortress full of evil missing ninja. But no, here he was, pulling weeds. One of the most humiliating thing he could have imagined, and the new bane of his existence. Good job team. Kakashi said, snapping his book shut as they finished their task. Let's return to Hokage-sama and report our success. Our success? Naruto asked with a snort. I hope you're not implying that you had anything to do with the success of this mission. Naruto spoke the word mission with disdain. How anyone could call these chores missions was beyond him. Of course. Kakashi said with an eye smile. Someone had to make sure you were all working properly. Naruto grunted as he, Sasuke, and Sakura followed Kakashi back towards the Hokage Tower. Tell me again, what exactly do completing these chores accomplish? asked Naruto in a sarcastic voice as they entered the Hokage Tower. Ma Naruto, I thought you would know about this. Kakashi chided as he flipped a page of his book. These missions help you with teamwork. Naruto's eye twitch. How does pulling weeds help our teamwork? We didn't even do anything as a team for this. Shut up, Baka. I'm sick of hearing you complain. Sakura shouted, raising her fist to hit him on the head. Naruto, however, was not in the mood to get hit by his abusive teammate. He caught her wrist and glared at her. Do not hit me again, Sakura. I haven't done anything to you to deserve getting hit. He had been slowly realizing that Sakura had never been any good for him, and he was in a foul enough mood that any feelings he may still have for her were pushed away. Sakura looked shocked as Naruto let go of her wrist. It soon turned into a glare, however, as they entered the Hokage's office. Thankfully, she did not attempt to hit him again. Ah! Team 7. Sarutobi said, looking up from his paperwork with a smile. He was glad for the distraction he now had from dealing with every Kage's worst enemy. I take it your mission was successful. It would have been if it was actually a mission. Naruto grumbled to himself. But still loud enough for the others to hear. Quiet, Naruto Baka. Sakura hissed, though she did not hit him. Do you want to get us in trouble? Sasuke was silent. He actually agreed with the dobe. These missions were not worthy of an Uchiha. The two adults just ignored the blonde's comment. Yes, the mission was a success, Hokage-sama. Kakashi said dutifully as he continued reading his porn. He reached into his pouch and pulled out the mission scroll with the signature from the person who paid for this mission on it. Not taking his eyes off his book, Kakashi handed the scroll over to Sarutobi. Excellent, all of you shall receive your pay then. Sarutobi handed Kakashi 4 envelopes with the mission payment. Now then, you are all dismissed. The three left the Hokage Tower and made their way back to Training Ground 7. When they got there, Kakashi handed them their payments. Now that we have completed a mission, I'm going to start our training, he told them. The three genin all perked up at that. Naruto and Sasuke excited at the prospect of actually learning something. What are you going to teach us? Asked Naruto, jumping on the balls of his feet, his shinobi calm forgotten. Is it going to be some new jutsu? Or maybe some super powerful fighting style? Or perhaps it's how to dash calm down Naruto? Kakashi said. Realizing what he was doing, Naruto took a deep breath before he stopped bouncing. Good. Now for this training I want the three of you to stand in a circle. I'm going to blindfold you and give you a ball. Then you're going to have to toss it to your other two teammates. Kakashi explained, chuckling at the reaction he got. What the hell kind of training is that? Asked Naruto, his right eye twitching violently. That has got to be dumbest, most ass-backwards training I have ever heard of. HN. Sasuke said, nodding his head in seeming agreement. Now, this is an important training session that I went through as a genin. Kakashi chided. Now come on. The three followed Kakashi, standing in a circle, or a triangle, since a circle was impossible with just 3 people. Kakashi tied a blindfold around each of them. He unsealed a ball from a scroll and gave it to Sasuke, before moving to stand in the middle. Okay, I want you 3 to begin, Kakashi said. Sasuke grunted as he threw the ball. Dope, he said, getting Naruto's attention. Naruto used his enhanced senses to catch the ball before throwing it to Sakura. Sakura tried to catch the ball, but it did not manage to catch in time before it hit her chest. Ow! Naruto Baka, watch how hard you throw, she yelled, throwing the ball back at him twice as hard. It was only thanks to his chakra-enhanced senses that he managed to catch the ball. It still stung his hands though. Ow! Damn it, Sakura! You don't need to throw the ball so Hard as retaliation. Sasuke. Naruto called, lobbing the ball over to him. Sasuke was held his hands up to catch the ball. However, Kakashi decided now was the time to interfere. Catching the ball, he threw it lower than Sasuke had his hands, hitting the raven-haired boy in the stomach. "What the hell, dope?" Sasuke shouted. Once again Naruto got the ball thrown at him harder than last time. This time it was thrown too fast for the blonde to catch and he ended up getting smacked in the head. Gah! Naruto held onto his head as the ball rolled away. "Damn it, team. I didn't throw it that hard." Kakashi picked up the ball and handed it to Naruto. "Try again, Naruto, and this time try not to hit someone." Naruto frowned as he wondered how to throw the ball. It was obvious that neither Sakura nor Sasuke seemed to have gotten the idea of using chakra to enhance their hearing, otherwise they would have been able to catch the ball. That meant he needed think of a way to make it easier. "Sakura, I'm gonna roll the ball to you," Naruto said as he rolled the ball to where his nose told her he was. Sakura bent down as the ball rolled to her. She missed as it hit her feet, but at least he didn't hit her. "Sasuke-kun, I'm rolling it to you," Sakura said, following Naruto's example for the moment. Kakashi said, actually impressed with the innovative way to complete the exercise. "Now this is an interesting way to do this. I never thought of completing the exercise this way." It seems Naruto is full of surprises. Kakashi let them do it this way for a while before interfering again. This time when Sasuke rolled the ball to Naruto, Kakashi picked it up and threw it, hitting the blonde in the head. "Hey! What the hell, team? You're supposed to roll it?" Naruto yelled as he landed on his butt. "What are you talking about, dope?" Sasuke grunted. "I did roll it." Then Naruto paused for a moment as he realized what was going on. Kakashi chuckled. "It seems you've caught on. You three can take your blindfolds off, the exercise is over," Kakashi said as he picked up the ball. The three genin took off their blindfolds off. "Now who can tell me what the exercise was about?" he asked, looking at the three of them. For a moment no one answered. "It was an exercise on teamwork," Naruto said. "Yes." Kakashi nodded. "But there was more to it than that." A teamwork exercise on trust?" asked Sakura, a little unsure of her answer. "Close," Kakashi said. "Be more elaborate in your explanation." Sakura tried to think about it. "You wanted us to come up with a way to trust our teammates by passing along that ball. We were blindfolded because if we could see the ball it would have made the exercise pointless, since it would no longer require us to have faith in our team," she asked tentatively. "Very good. And why did I interfere?" asked Kakashi. "Because you wanted to sow dissension among the ranks," grunted Sasuke, not wanting to be upstaged by the walking brain that was Sakura. "Excellent, well done you three." Kakashi gave them an eye smile. "Now tomorrow we'll meet here again to go on more missions." "But it's still early," whined Naruto. "Aren't we going to do more training?" Kakashi shook his head. "No, I feel you guys deserve a break." He had actually thought about teaching them some more, but he was not really sure what to teach them yet. And he had no clue what he should teach them. With Sasuke being something a loose cannon, he figured the best thing to do would be to teach teamwork, that way Sasuke would be able to ease in with the others and they could work more efficiently as a team before he taught them anything. "You're right," Naruto thought bitterly, his right eye twitching. "More like you're too lazy to actually truly train us." "I'll see you all tomorrow, team," Kakashi said as he disappeared via Sunshin. With Kakashi gone, Sakura turned to Sasuke. "So Sasuke-kun, would you like to go on a date with me?" "No," Sasuke said. Walking off. Sakura watched him go with slumped shoulders. She turned around to Naruto, wanting to make herself feel better by denying him the chance for a date. However, much to her shock, Naruto walked right past her. "I'll see you tomorrow, Sakura," he said, leaving Sakura to stand on the bridge in shock. He didn't even ask me out on a date," thought Sakura. Could it be that she had finally pushed him away? I should be happy, right? If that was the case, why did it feel like she had lost something? The moment only lasted for a few seconds before she shook her head. She didn't need that baka anyways. Nodding to herself, she walked off, hoping to find Sasuke-kun so she could still observe him. It was a little while later that Naruto opened the door to the Hokage's office. "Hey Aja-san-kan. I speak to you for a second," he asked as he walked in. Sarutobi looked up and smiled. "Of course, Naruto-kun. What can I do for you?" "Well, I was reading about elemental manipulation in a book I just got, and I was wondering how to find out about my element, since the book only mentioned it in passing," Naruto said. "Elemental affinity?" Sarutobi asked in surprise. "That's a Jonin level skill. Naruto-kun. Are you sure you're ready to learn about that?" Naruto shook his head. "It's not so much that I'm going to any kind of training for my element. I actually want to know my affinity so I know which elemental jutsu to learn. I have a few scrolls with the jutsu from each element that I got from the library, but figured it would be better to learn ones from the element I have an affinity for." "Ah." Sarutobi nodded his head as he pulled a drawer in his desk open. "That does make a lot of sense actually. Lucky for you, I happen to have some affinity paper right here." The aging Hokage pulled out a small slip of paper, handing over to Naruto. "Just channel some chakra into it to learn your affinity. If it's fire, it will burn. Lightning will crumble. Water will soak. Earth will turn to dust. And wind will cut the paper." Naruto nodded as he cut the paper. What happened shocked both of them. The entire paper was torn to shreds. "So wind?" Naruto said, sounding almost like a question. "Yes." "Interesting, it seems you have an unusual affinity for someone born in High no Kuni. And a powerful one at that," Sarutobi commented. Of course his father was also a wind type. But for the paper to just get torn to shreds like that, his affinity must be off the charts. "So is that good?" asked Naruto as he looked over at the old man. "It's neither good nor bad really," Sarutobi answered with a shrug. "Wind is the rarest affinity here in High no Kuni. In fact, I only know one person here who has that affinity." "Really? Who?" asked Naruto curiously. "My son, Sarutobi Asuma, is a wind user," answered Sarutobi. "He's the Jonin sensei of Team 10, isn't he?" Naruto remembered seeing the man pick up Shikamaru, Koji, and Ino at the Genin orientation. The Sandaime nodded in confirmation of the boy's question. "Maybe when I get started on elemental training I can ask him for help." "Indeed you can, I believe he trains his team at Training Ground 10. Sarutobi informed the blonde. Naruto snorted in amusement. "So Team 7 trains at Training Ground 7, and Team 10 trains at Training Ground 10. I'm guessing all of the Genin squads have the same training ground as their team number dictates." "How cliché." Sarutobi chuckled. "I suppose it is. Now I'll see you later, I need to get back to my paperwork." Sarutobi glared at the pile of papers as if hoping it would burn. Naruto's sweat dropped. Ajisen," he said, getting the old man's attention. "Why don't you just use Kage Bunchins to do your paperwork?" Sarutobi blinked at him olishly. "I mean, they pass on their memories to the user after they dispel, right? So, Kage Bunchin," Sarutobi muttered. Naruto and the two Umbu currently hidden in the room, sweat dropped as Sarutobi began banging his head on the table. "Stupid, stupid, stupid, stupid. Damn it, that's How he completed his paperwork so fast. The Sandaime sat up and shook a fist at the picture of the fourth Hokage, which the old man could swear was grinning at him. Damn you, Minato. Right. I'm just gonna leave now, Naruto said, moving towards the door cautiously as Sarutobi cursed out the fourth with every vulgar word he knew. As soon as Naruto got to the training ground, he held up his hands in the ram sign and called out his most useful jutsu. Tajuyukage Bunjin no Jutsu. Instead of the usual 100, Naruto created an extra 50. Already having their orders, 100 of the clones spread out and began working on their assigned tasks. Naruto turned to the extra 50 he had created as he pulled out 5 scrolls from his left kunao pouch. I want you guys to split up into groups of 10. Choose a jutsu and work on it until you run out of chakra. YOSH. The 50 blonde copies said simultaneously as 5 of them grabbed the scroll. While they went off to practice their jutsu, Naruto began his exercise routine. He was a little disappointed that he would only get to do this after his team meetings, mission, and team training, knowing that it would cut into his time. Realizing this, Naruto added an extra 5 pounds to his weights again before starting. After his workout, Naruto got about to cooking dinner, unsealing some of the fish his clones had caught a few days ago. He sat down as he began to cook them over the fire pit. Don't even try it, Anko, he said suddenly, causing the person who had been sneaking up behind him to pout. How did you know it was me? Anko asked as she moved around him and sat down next to him. Naruto shrugged. I figured it would only be a matter of time before you showed up. I just kept channeling chakra to my ears and listened for someone arriving. Since you're the only one who comes here. He trailed off as his fish finished cooking. Anko pouted. It's no fun if you can hear me coming. I guess that just means you need to be stealthier, Naruto said as he took a bite of his fish. Maybe, Anko replied, snatching one of his fish from him. She ignored the glare Naruto sent her as she began to eat. So how was your first day of missions? She asked. You knew that I was going to be stuck doing those chores, Naruto said, his glare doubling in intensity as Anko grinned at him. You didn't think you would start off rescuing princesses, did you? Asked Anko, her grin increasing as she saw Naruto's look. You did, didn't you? Shut up, Naruto said with a blush. Anko grinned at him. You're gonna have to make me do that, and you're 50 years too soon for that to happen. Naruto narrowed his eyes at her, though there was no actual malice. You wanna bet? Anko just stood up with a smirk. Alright, since you're so set on this, I suppose I've got enough time to kick your ass. 2 weeks later, after breakfast, Naruto headed over to his training ground and created the usual 150 clones. With his clones working, Naruto did his physical training. He had gotten quite a bit more skilled recently, in all the spheres he had applied himself. His chakra control was a lot better. Naruto's clones had finally managed to float a leaf on each finger. After that he made them spin counterclockwise, before switching direction. When his clones had been able to split their attention so that his clones could spin leaves clockwise and then counterclockwise every other leaf, Naruto had started them on tree climbing. Right now they were able to walk 3/4 ths the way up, and run all the way to the top. Anko had decided to give him some advice by saying that he had not actually mastered this technique until his clones could fight while standing on a vertical surface for at least an hour. Both his skills Tai and Bujutsu had increased. Naruto no longer had any trouble keeping up with Anko in a fight, at least he hadn't until Anko had upped her skill, making the blonde realize she had been going easy on him the whole time. She had said that he was still at Genin level, but if he gave it a month or two could possibly increase his skills to Chunin at the rate he was learning. His jutsu had made some decent improvement. Naruto had managed to learn 2 of the 5 jutsu he had set out to learn. The futon, Daitapa, wind release, great breakthrough, a simple C-rank jutsu where the user sucked in air and blew it out to create a great force of wind that was used to knock opponents off their feet. The futon, repusho, wind release, wind gale palm, another C-rank where the user channel wind chakra to their palms and release it in a thrust. This could be used for either increasing the speed of thrown weapons, or to knock opponents off balance. Because his clones had learned those jutsu, Naruto had delegated the 30 that finished the jutsu to work on the other ones until he had gotten them down. Despite the progress he had made in those shinobi aspects, Naruto felt that his Fuin jutsu was where he had taken his largest leap in ability. Naruto's handwriting was finally good enough to begin working on seal creation. He had already made several that he had applied to his home. Like a basic security seal on his door that could only be unlocked through the use of his chakra, and a heating seal on his shower head to create hot water for his shower. Naruto had also managed to place resistance seals on himself. The seals located on his wrists, biceps, calves, thighs, chest and stomach. The resistance seals had a total of 100 levels of resistance, each level the amount of resistance would double. So at level 1 it felt like he was wading through water, and at level 2 it would be like wading through a thick mud. Honestly, he could not really understand why the seals bothered having so many levels. Right now he was at level 1, and it was ridiculously hard just to move. Naruto had found out that he needed to constantly channel chakra into his limbs to strengthen them enough to move through his exercises. Though the blonde assumed that the idea was to slowly wean yourself off of using chakra in order to increase one's natural speed. And if this was just level 1, he did not even want to imagine what level 100 would be like. The resistance seals were all connected to a master seal that controlled the resistance seals on his body. It was located on his right bicep and connected to his resistance seals with linking seals, which looked like chains that went to the resistance seals. Naruto had also ended up using a special genjutsu seal he had learned from the intermediate book to keep it invisible so others would not notice he had them. He had also ended up created several containment seals, explosive tags, and even a trap tag that released Kunao when it detected a foreign chakra within a 15-foot radius of it. Finishing up his training and eating lunch, Naruto created more clones to continue working while he headed into Konoha. Making his way down one of the streets of the village, Naruto ignored the hostile glares he got as he made his way towards the Higurashi weapons store. As he entered the store, Naruto was surprised to find Tenten manning the cash register. "Hey Tenten!" Naruto greeted, causing the bun-haired girl's head to snap up. "Naruto!" Tenten greeted as she came around the desk and walked up to him. "Not with your team today?" Naruto asked, tilting his head to the side. "It's my day off." Tenten shrugged before looking at him pointedly. "You know you haven't visited since that first time you came in here." Naruto blinked and took a step back at the small glare she was giving him. Well, I just got enough money to buy more equipment so you have to have a reason to come to the store and visit?" Tenten asked, crossing her arms. Well, no. Of course not. It's just that." Naruto stuttered, not really sure how to deal with girls. As far as the opposite sex went, he had only dealt with Anko and Sakura, and one of them was completely psychotic, while the other liked to try and abuse him. Tenten laughed and waved a hand in front of her face. "Relax, I'm just kidding." "Oh," Naruto said lamely, not quite sure what to make of her joke. "So what are you here for?" Tenten asked. "Would you believe me if I said I was here to visit you?" Naruto asked with a grin. "Nice try." Tenten chuckled. Naruto snapped his fingers. "Oh well. I'm here for some more equipment. Standard ninja tools for a C rank mission," Naruto said, getting down to business. "You're going on a C rank? Already?" Tenten asked in surprise. Most genin don't go on C-rank missions until they had at least 4 to 6 months experience. No. Naruto shook his head, wishing that he could be going on a C rank. I just figured that the amount used for one should be enough for me to practice with for now. Well, that stuff should be easy to get, Tenten said as she and Naruto went around grabbing the equipment he wanted. So I take it you have your Jonin sensei now? Tenten asked after a while. Naruto nodded. Yep. My sensei is a guy named Heitake Kakashi. Naruto looked over at Tenten as she stopped. You okay, Tenten? Kakashi, huh? She asked, looking at Naruto as he nodded. I can't believe it, she muttered. Believe what? Asked Naruto in confusion. Kakashi is the eternal rival of my sensei, Tenten said as she quoted the words eternal rival. Really? That's interesting. Who's your sensei? Naruto asked. My sensei is Guy Mato, Tenten said as she restarted gathering Naruto's equipment. He's a decent sensei if a little eccentric. She shuddered a bit at the word. He specializes in taijutsu, and he's good, I mean he's really good. He turned my teammate who is the dead last of our class into a force to be reckoned with. Taijutsu, huh? Naruto asked, looking interested. Hey, do you think I can join you and your team for a training session? Well, I don't see why not, Tenten said with a shrug as she led Naruto over to the cash register. But aren't you supposed to train with your own sensei? She rang up all of the equipment he had bought. That will come to 4,000 yen. Naruto reached into his pouch and pulled out Gama-chan, his frog wallet. I would train with my sensei if he actually trained us. He scowled. So far all we've really done are teamwork exercises as he calls them. He handed her the money. I mean, we occasionally spar with each other, but he usually stops us after like 15 minutes, and he doesn't even correct any mistakes we have in our form. The man is one of the laziest jonin I've ever met. Tenten raised an eyebrow as she put the money away. What exactly are teamwork exercises? She asked. Well, I remember we've had to toss a ball to each other blindfolded. Then there was this one time he chained us together and we had to find him in the forest in order to get the key to escape. Naruto shuddered. It took us nearly an hour to find him. That's it? Tenten asked, receiving a nod. Then it sounds like your sensei is either really lazy or really stupid. She snickered a bit as Naruto muttered or both under his breath. Our team had already started on tree climbing by now. Yeah, I had to do tree climbing myself, Naruto said as he sealed up his supplies in one of his personalized sealing scrolls. So I usually get away from my team at 3:00 p.m. Then you're in luck since my team usually stays out until 6 a.m. to 9:00 p.m. Tenten said. Cool, so I'll see you tomorrow, Naruto asked. Yeah, that sounds fine, Tenten said. We train at training ground 9. Just to warn you, thought one of my teammates and my sensei are weird. Naruto gave Tenten a grin. My sensei reads porn in public. I think I can handle weird. See ya, Tenten. Naruto waved goodbye as he left. Tenten waved after him, getting back to manning the cash register when he left. The next day Naruto headed over to training ground 9 after he finished meeting his team. When he got there he was greeted to the odd sight of a man and what could pass off as his clone hugging each other behind a sunset. Wow. Tenten meant it when she said her sensei was weird. And what the hell is with the mini-clone? Tenten, Naruto called out as he tried his best to ignore the two men hugging. Tenten and her other teammate, a boy with long brown hair, gray pupilless eyes and an off-white robe, looked over at him. Hey Naruto, Tenten said with a smile. Glad you could make it? Naruto gave the girl an amused grin. What and miss, this? He pointed over at the still hugging guys. Yeah. Tenten blushed in embarrassment at her teammate and sensei. I told you they were weird. Remind me to never doubt you again. Naruto joked. YOSH, who is this person who is joining our youthful group? What the hell? Naruto spun around and saw the clones were no longer hugging each other and were instead looking at him. Now that he got a better look at the pair, Naruto noticed their clothes in more detail. Green spandex with orange leg warmers and their headbands being used as belts. The only difference between the two was that the taller one had a jonin flak jacket while the smaller one did not. Another thing he noticed was, "Dear Kami-sama, I think those eyebrows are moving." Naruto thought as he looked at the eyebrows that were sitting just below their bowl-cut hair. Did they decide to superglue a pair of caterpillars above their eyes? Guy Sensei, this is Naruto. Tenten said in way of greeting. He asked if he could join us. YOSH. It is most youthful of you to join us as we fan our flames of youth. Guy shouted, giving Naruto the nice guy pose, complete with sparkling teeth. Yes, Naruto-kun. It is always nice to see others who wish to join us as we fan our youthful flames, the guy clone shouted. Right. Naruto took a step back, slightly scared by the two shouting shinobi. He was starting to wonder if maybe going to train with Tenten and her team was such a good idea. Tenten's mouth twitched into an amused smile as she noticed Naruto's discomfort. Naruto, these are my teammates Rock Lee. Naruto pointed to the guy clone who gave him a nice guy pose, complete with shining teeth, and did Naruto hear them ping? And this other one is Hyuga. Naruto's attention was then directed to the other one. You know, your eyes look like a classmate of mine's, Naruto said as he looked at Neki. Neji raised an eyebrow. Oh. Yep. It's some dark, weird girl named Hinata. Are you related to her by any chance? Naruto asked, frowning when he noticed Negi stiffen at the name. Why don't we start training? Tenten suggested, knowing who Naruto was talking about and Neji's problems with her. Tenten, you are absolutely right. Guy shouted. Come. Let us burn in the flames of our youth. Right. Naruto said before turning to Tenten. Do you use close-range weapons? He asked. Tenten smirked. I work at my parents' weapon shop. What do you think? She reached into her pouch and grabbed a scroll. Unsealing a standard yet well-made katana. It may not be my specialty, but I'm still pretty good with close-ranged weapons. Naruto grinned as he took his bow staff from his back. Well then, let's see who's better with their weapon. Tenten returned his grin as she ran at him, attempting to hit him with a vertical slash from the left. Naruto spun his staff, knocking her sword away and coming in with a jab. Tenten leapt back as Naruto came at her, making quick jabs and spinning attacks with his staff. Naruto made sure to keep out of range of Tenten's sword, something the weapon-using girl noticed. On Naruto's next swing, Tenten locked her blade with his staff, keeping the bow staff pointed towards the ground as she dragged her blade across it. She came at Naruto with a slash. Ducking under the attack, Naruto brought his now free staff up and tried to hit Tenten with the end of it. Tenten spun to the side, using her sword to push the staff away before coming right in. Naruto dodged the thrust of Tenten's sword, putting his staff on the ground and using it as leverage as he attempted to kick her. Not able to bring her sword to lock, Tenten ducked under the attack and jumped back. The two eyed each other as they continued trading blows, neither one really getting the upper hand. Naruto had a reach advantage since his staff was longer. But Tenten was more skilled in her weapon, having been training with weapons since she was a child. As the two continued, Lee and Guy had stopped their own sparring to watch the pair. You're good. Naruto grunted as he blocked a series strikes. You're really good. Thanks. Tenten said with a grin as she moved back when Naruto began twirling his staff around in an offensive formation. For someone who just started 3 weeks ago, you're not bad yourself. What can I say? Naruto shot back, ducking under a swing before sidestepping another. I'm a natural. He made another offensive spin as he tried to knock Tenten's blade out of her hand. It ended up backfiring as Tenten managed to time her attack to his, knocking him off balance. Tenten went into a leg sweep, tripping Naruto and causing him to land on his back with an oof, as he got the air knocked out of him. Natural or not? Tenten said as she stood over Naruto, grinning as she pointed her blade at his throat. You've still got a long ways to go to beat me. Naruto looked at the blade currently being pointed at his throat. He tilted his head to see Tenten grinning down at him. Then he looked back to the blade. I'll win next time, he declared. I'm sure. Tenten replied as she held out a hand to help Naruto up. Naruto-san, that was a most youthful fight you had with Tenten. Guy said. Yes, Naruto-kun, that was such an amazing fight. Lee cried, drying his eyes on his sleeve. Before Naruto even knew what was happening, Lee got right in his face, tears pouring out of his bug-like eyes like a water fall. We must have a spar to test our flames of youth against each other. I challenge you to Taijutsu contest, and if I cannot defeat you, I will run 600 laps around Konoha. And if I cannot do that, I will carry several boulders on my back as I climb the Hokage monument. That's an excellent idea, Lee. Guy shouted. Way to stoke your flames of youth. I shall help you with this endeavor. If you fail, I will do 6,000 push-ups on my thumbs. Oh, Guy sensei. Lee cried as he looked at his sensei. Lee, tears began pouring from Guy's eyes as he looked at his student. Guy sensei. Lee, Guy sensei. Lee. As the Jonin and his student began hugging, Naruto finally got the full effects of the sunset genjutsu, complete with a sandy beach and crashing waves. Naruto looked down at the sand that had somehow appeared under his boots. Crouching down, he picked up a seashell and skipped it across the water. Holy shit, this is real! Naruto shouted, shock, surprise and more than a little fear etched onto his face. Tenten nodded. I tried dispelling it the first few times. It never works. My Byakugan can't see through it. Niji added, his eyes somehow not able to get off. The two man-hugging clones. What the hell kind of genjutsu is this? Shouted Naruto as he continued watching what had to be the most unusual and creepiest scene ever. He couldn't help the shiver that ran down his spine. 1 week later, a week after his first meeting with Tenten's team, and things had started to get busy for the blonde. Naruto had decided to train with Team 9 every other day, leaving his clones to work on what he had assigned them that day, while he went over to Training Ground 9. It was then that Naruto had realized just how much more he had to grow in order to get stronger. Naruto would come home every night he spent with them battered and bruised, or cut up and slashed, depending on whether he fought the force of nature known as Lee, or Tenten. Both of them were only genin, but they were so far ahead of him it was nearly laughable. He vowed then on that he would train even harder to beat them. Of course he also had to deal with Anko on the other days, at least when she wasn't on missions. The snake summoning Tokabutsu Jonin had been rather put off when she had gone into the clearing and found out that Naruto had gone off to train with another group of people. She had of course conceded that for pure taijutsu, Guy was a better teacher. Of course, that was only after she had nearly fed Naruto to her snakes for training with others. After that, Anko had decided that since Naruto was learning hand-to-hand combat from someone else, she would work on his stealth, detection, and trap-setting skills, by playing extreme death tag in the Forest of Death. Naruto's fear of the place had been heightened that much more as Anko seemed to attack him with a new amount of viciousness, though whether from being put out at having Naruto with others, or just because she felt like torturing him was unknown. Of course not all things were as Painful as that. Naruto's clones continued to make great progress in their work. His tree-climbing clones had finally managed to battle for a full hour without falling, which was quite the accomplishment considering they had much smaller reserves than Naruto himself, especially with the amount of clones Naruto made each day to train with. He now had them working on water walking, though progress with that was much slower than tree climbing had been. Due to not just his clones, but also gaining experience against other fighters, both his taijutsu and bujutsu had risen a notch. Being forced to fight Lee, who was blindingly fast, had made it imperative for Naruto to train his eyes in order to even see the blur the green-clad genin left behind. As well as make more clones to help him perfect his taijutsu. It still was not good, but Naruto had deemed it enough that he had started working on another style alongside Muay Thai. And since he was with Konoha's Green Beasts, as the duo called themselves, he had begun to learn the Gakuen style they were practitioners of. His bujutsu was also going good. Like his taijutsu, Naruto would fight against a live opponent to help him. It turned out that Tenten was really good at not just swords for close range, but also using a staff, nagitana, and just about any other close-range weapon. Naruto had learned to fight against a variety of different weapons and had begun experimenting with other weapons to use for himself. Naruto's Fuinjutsu had also skyrocketed. While he was no master, and was not even at an intermediate level in his practical usage of Fuinjutsu, he could now break down the fundamental seals in all the basic sealing arrays, turn them inside out, and understood some of the more complex seals enough for him to modify them in order to suit his needs. Naruto was currently trying to come up with several of his own seals, ones that he hoped would revolutionize sealing, though progress was much slower and more environmentally hazardous than simply copying and modifying seals. There was also his jutsu clones. They had finally finished learning the last two he had set out to learn. The Futon, Kamikaze Seiken, Wind Release, Fist of Divine Wind, a B-rank jutsu where Naruto focused wind to his fists and thrust them out. The jutsu caused tremendous amounts of blunt force trauma, often leaving a large Naruto-sized crater shaped like his fists in the rocks he had used to practice the jutsu. The Futon, Kaze no Yaibi, Wind Release, Wind Sword, was AA ranked jutsu that Konoha had gotten thanks to its alliance with Suna. This jutsu created a pinpoint slashing strike, where the user had to emit wind chakra from their fingertips and materialize it into an invisible wind sword that would, depending on the power output, do anything from create cuts on an enemy's body, or slice them all the way through. This jutsu was the hardest one for Naruto to learn. He had only just got it down, and even then he still had some problems controlling the blade. He had theorized that the only reason he could even use this attack was because his affinity for wind was unnaturally high. His other jutsu was the Futon, Kaze Senbon, Wind Release, Wind Senbon, another B-rank jutsu where Naruto formed several dozen senbon out of wind and launched them at an enemy, turning anything into a pincushion. The amount of senbon he could create depended on his control of his wind chakra. Right now he could only make around 12 to 15 senbon. Naruto had been able to find these particular jutsu when he had managed to sneak into the Jonin section of the library. It was actually disappointingly easy to gain access to that section since they did not even post guards in the library, and the only people he needed to worry about were the custodian and the Jonin who came there. Which there was a surprisingly small amount of Jonin who seemed to go to the library, something Naruto chalked up to either laziness, arrogance, or both. Not that he was ungrateful, because the wind element was so rare in Konoha that there were very few jutsu for them, and most of the jutsu they did have were higher ranked than others, due to the fact that wind was almost a purely offensive element and very dangerous to use when untrained. Of course Naruto was not quite satisfied with just learning a jutsu, and so, wanting to master them, he had set his clones to work on them again. This time the 50 he had created for jutsu learning would only work on them one at a time, starting with the Futon, Daitapa, the first jutsu he had learned. However, Naruto's work was partially slowed down by his team training, which had not changed from the teamwork exercises and minimal sparring Kakashi had them do. He had started them on a few other things, but most of it was theory on battle tactics and the like, which he was already studying himself. Still, he supposed it was good for to review, and Kakashi had offered him several unique perspectives on some of the tactics the blonde had studied from the Third Great Ninja War. The only other thing he had to do with his team were the missions they went on, much like the one he was on now. This is Raven, I'm in position. Blossom, I'm ready. This is Blondie, I see the target and am waiting to take M out. This is Scarecrow, move in and capture the target. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura all jumped out from their hiding spots as they ran towards the target. Said target screeched and hissed as it ran, only to be intercepted by Sakura. It made a mad turn the other way, however Naruto began launching Kunao at it to turn it around, directing it towards Sasuke, who used ninja wire to trap it. Naruto leaned down and picked up the now struggling cat. This is Raven, we've caught the target. Sasuke said into his headset. Confirm pink ribbon on right ear. Came Kakashi's reply. Blondie here, pink ribbon on right ear confirmed. Naruto said, looking back at the cat to see it had gotten loose from its bonds. Hey Sasuke. HN. Sasuke turned around as Naruto threw the pissed off cat at his face. Miruo. The cat screeched as it began to claw at Sasuke's face. Arrgh. Sasuke's screams were heard all around Konoha. Several minutes later, two twitching genin, and one grinning genin were standing in the missions room with their sensei. Mission to capture pet cat Tora complete. Kakashi said, opening the cage where the demo cat had been placed in after mutilating Sasuke's face. Kakashi grinned a bit beneath his mask as he got to watch his own team suffer from the same horror he went through as a genin. Oh, thank you so much. Madam Shinji, a rather large woman in expensive clothing said. She grabbed the cat before it could flee. My dear Tora-chan, how I missed you so. I was so worried about you. I don't know what I would do without you. Wow, it's no wonder that cat runs away so much. Naruto thought as he watched the woman squeeze her cat to death. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Thought Sasuke, laughing manically at the cat's plight. Serves that cat right for hurting my Sasuke-kun. Sakura thought. Cha. Stupid cat. Next time I'll make mincemeat out of ya. Inner Sakura shouted as she made several punching motions. Excellent job Team 7. Sarutobi said as the woman and her cat left. How about another mission? I have painting the fence for Kotaro-san, walking the Inyazuka dogs, or we could dash no Tora, came a scream from outside, signifying that the cat ran away, again. Sarutobi blinked before continuing. Of course there is always catching dash no. Sasuke interrupted with an angry glare, having finally lost his Uchiha cool. No more of these chores. I'm an Uchiha. And I demand you give me a mission worthy of an Uchiha. That's right. Sakura said, defending her crush. Sasuke-kun deserves a better mission. Oh boy. Kakashi thought with a sigh. This won't end well, though I would have expected something like this from Naruto, not Sasuke. How did I get such a mixed up team? Naruto's sweat dropped as he looked at his two teammates. He turned his attention over to his sensei, who now looked distinctly uncomfortable, though it was hard to tell with his face nearly covered. Looking over at the table, he noticed Sarutobi looking somewhere between amusement and anger. And finally Irika, who was working the missions department, looking like he was about to blow a gasket. Treat Hokage-sama with some respect. Irika shouted, slamming his hands on the table. You're all only newly graduated genin. Everyone starts out doing this work. And it takes experience before you can start taking higher ranked missions, Uchiha or not. What experience? Sasuke asked sarcastically. The most experienced mission we get is catching that thrice-damned cat? I deserve a better mission. Sasuke-Kakashi tried. Every mission to the village is important. Iruka yelled, cutting off Kakashi. You need to get over yourself and remember your duty. My what? Sasuke yelled as he shook in rage. How dare these people tell him about his duty? His duty was to kill his clan's murder. But he couldn't do that unless he was stronger. And he couldn't get stronger by running these errands. Before things could degenerate even more, Naruto decided to speak up. I sort of agree with Sasuke team. Everyone paused to look at him, causing Naruto to flush a bit. Well, not about everything. But I do think we are ready for a C rank mission at least. We've gone on 31D ranks and have done plenty of teamwork exercises, so we know that we can work together. At least until the mission or training is over, and then we ignore each other. Well, Sakura ignores me and Sasuke just ignores everyone. However, he did not mention that part out loud. Sarutobi puffed on his pipe for a moment before looking at Kakashi. Do you believe they are ready, Kakashi? He asked. Kakashi looked over at his students in thought. Well, I'm pretty sure that Sasuke and Naruto can handle themselves outside of the village. Despite his outbursts, Sasuke is normally cool and composed, and Naruto has shown considerable maturity since coming onto this team. Sakura might be a bit of a problem, but then again, a C rank mission has little chance of ninja confrontation. What kind of mission is it? Asked Kakashi. An escort and protection detail. You are to protect the client heading back of Tanami no Kuni. Sarutobi replied. Kakashi thought about it a little more before nodding. Very well, I think we can accomplish a mission like this. Really? Asked Naruto, getting a little excited at the prospect of going outside of the village. So who are we protecting? A princess? A celebrity? Some kind of noble? Calm down, Naruto-kun. Sarutobi chuckled a bit at the boy's enthusiasm. You can send in the client now. Naruto and the others turned to the door. Almost as soon as it slid open, the stench of alcohol slammed into the blonde, who nearly gagged, forcing him to cut off the chakra he had begun to subconsciously send to his nose. Shaking his head to clear, he looked at the man who had walked in. Said man was a 40-something-year-old man with a graying hair and beard, rectangular spectacles on his eyes and a pot belly. He was wearing wooden sandals, beige shorts, and an off-white and alcohol-stained shirt and a straw hat. What the hell? It's just a bunch of snot-nosed gakis. The man exclaimed in annoyance, taking the bottle he had in his hand and chugging down several gulps. He's certainly not what I expected. Naruto thought to himself, his left eye twitching erratically. I mean, look at him. The one with the black hair in the shape of a duck's ass looks more like Sir Brood's a lot than a ninja. And that pink-haired girl looks like his little whore. A cyclops, scarecrow, and some midget. The man said after lowering the bottle. You expect me to believe these are ninja? I believe it when I see it. The man brought the bottle to his lips again. However, before the bottle even got to his mouth, a blade of wind came at him, slicing the bottle off right below the man's hand. The bottle fell to the floor and shattered, spraying the man's feet with alcohol. Gah! Naruto, you're not supposed to attack the client. Kakashi scolded in a bored tone. Though inwardly he was studying the blonde. That was a futon, Kaze no Yabe, wind release, wind blade. He's obviously been learning some new jutsu, and those hand seals were actually pretty fast for a genin. Though I wonder where he got that jutsu. Attacking him? Naruto asked, tilting his head in confusion. I think you're misunderstanding. If I had actually attacked him, he would be dead. I was merely giving him a demonstration of our skills. After all, he did say he'll believe it when he sees it. Sarutobi brought a hand up to pull his hat down over his head. With all that's happened and the maturity he's shown, I sometimes forget that Naruto is still just a 12-year-old boy, albeit one who's been through more than most people even twice his age. Meanwhile, Iruka slammed his head on the table in embarrassment. Right. Tajuna stuttered a bit as he looked at the clean cut of his bottle. He threw the piece he was holding away and looked at the group. Anyways, my name is Tajuna, and I am a master bridge builder. You will escort me back home to Nami no Kuni, where I am building my next bridge. Somehow, despite his drunken stupor, Tajuna managed to straighten himself. I expect all of you to protect me, even it costs you your lives. I wonder what he means with that statement? Naruto questioned. For a C-rank mission like this, there should be no real danger other than bandits. Of course it could just be the ramblings of a drunken old man. Right then, Kakashi said as he tried to get things back in order. Why don't we all meet at the East Gate in an hour? Naruto frowned. Why don't we wait until tomorrow, he suggested. Everyone turned to look at him. Why do you suggest tomorrow, Naruto? Kakashi asked, curious to see what his blonde student came up with. Well, first off, it's several hours past noon. If we leave now, we'll be forced to make camp before we even make it several miles from Konoha, since Tajuna's a civilian and I doubt he can run or tree hop to Nami no Kuni. And second, the man is drunk as fuck. A drunk is much harder to protect than someone sober. Less reasonable too. He looked around to see everyone staring at him like he had grown a second head. What? It was the next morning and Naruto was up bright and early going over his equipment. He knew he was probably overstressing things, but he felt that being over-prepared for something like this was better than being under-prepared. After all, it was his first mission out of the village and it was important to make a good impression on their client. Even if said client was an old drunk like Tajuna. Ugh, Anko's paranoia is getting to me, Naruto thought with a frown as he looked at all his equipment. He shrugged the thought off. Paranoia could only be a good thing for a ninja. Let's see, Kunao scroll, check. Shuriken scroll, check. Ninja wire, check. Smoke pellets, check. Flashbangs, check. Food and camping equipment, check. Customized explosive notes. Naruto grinned as he patted the scroll. Holding his modified explosive notes. Double check. Finding all of his containment scrolls ready to go, Naruto grinned to himself and sealed all of the scrolls into a larger master scroll, which was then sealed into a containment scroll on the left-hand side of his chest. Finished with his preparations, Naruto had only one more thing to do. Naruto formed a ram seal and created a mental image in his mind. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he said, getting a puff of smoke. When it cleared, it revealed two Naruto clones that were already transformed into Kiin and Akira. Naruto channeled chakra into a containment seal on his left hand and unsealed an ink brush and some ink. Alright, turn around you two. Naruto ordered. Knowing what Naruto was doing, his clones turned around. The blonde went up to Akira and pulled her shirt down to expose the back of her neck. Sticking his tongue out in concentration, he began to write the only truly complex seal that was of his own make. It was a seal that he had modified from a basic containment seal. This seal was designed to hold chakra instead of an item of some kind, and continuously release it into the person or object to help reinforce them or it. In this case, it would continuously send chakra into his clone and allow it to last longer than a day, that way it could go work while he went on this mission. It had been something he had been working on since he first got the idea of using Henged Kage Bunshin to earn extra money. Knowing that his missions would take him out of the village, Naruto had realized that if he wanted his clones to keep their jobs, he would need to find some way to make them last longer when he was out of the village. When Naruto finished, he checked, double-checked, and then triple-checked the seal to make sure none of the ink was messed up. Satisfied he channeled enough chakra to create 30 cage bunchins. It would be enough to last for a month, give or take a day. He repeated the process with Kian. Before nodding to himself. Alright, done. I want you guys to keep a low profile while I'm gone. Don't do anything stupid. Don't worry, Akira said in her soft alto tenor, giving her creator a beautiful smile. You can count on us. Right, Naruto said with a nod. He had created these clones with a specific personality in mind that was nothing like his. Having read a few stories, Naruto created Akira from a few of the girls he had read about in some of his manga. She was made to be sweet, kind, and dependable, always willing to help out others. Kian was created based off of what Naruto thought Sasuke's personality would be like if he ever got that emo stick out of his ass. The process of creating clones that were in truth nothing like him had actually been rather complicated, at least the mental process had. In order to create the clones like that, Naruto had been required to immerse himself in the mindset of the personality he wanted to impose on his clones, and then create the clones. It had required a long and drawn-out process of changing his mindset. He had only been able to really make them perfect around 2 weeks ago. It did not help that he had also been forced to use a seal-less henge on them. In order for them not to freak out. He had learned early on that if they were not transformed into who they were, the clones would start to hyperventilate before dispelling, though this problem mainly came from Akira. Not that he could blame her. If Naruto were to wake up and suddenly find himself as a girl rather than a guy, he would freak out too. Well then, I'll see you guys later, Naruto said. As he left his apartment and made his way towards the gate where he was supposed to meet his sensei. Like Naruto, Sakura was busy packing the things she felt would be important for her mission. Clothing, extra shampoo and conditioner, a loofah, her makeup, that cute little dress that she had been hoping to wear for Sasuke-kun. You know, the important things. When she finished packing, Sakura heft her backpack over her shoulder. She walked downstairs and headed towards the door. I'm going out on a mission, Mom, she said, not waiting for a reply as she left, heading down the street in high spirits. Maybe now that we're going out of the village, Sasuke-kun and I can have some time alone together. Sakura thought with a giggle. Uchiha Sasuke was packing his own belongings in his room in the clan head's home of the Uchiha compound. Despite the Uchiha compound being completely barren and lifeless, he continued to live it in. Of course, he had been offered a place outside of the compound. However, he wanted this place to be a reminder of what he was, an Avenger. I'm finally getting a mission that can help prove myself as an Uchiha, he thought. I'll prove my strength and use this as a stepping stone to get stronger so I can get my revenge against Itachi. After he finished packing his stuff, Sasuke lifted his pack and left his room and then the house and clan compound altogether, heading for the east gate. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura all found themselves waiting around the front gate with their client Tajuna. Like always, they had been waiting for nearly 3 hours. Where the hell is your Jonin sensei? Tajuna spoke in a disgruntled voice as he paced back and forth. I thought ninja were supposed to be ready in a timely fashion. Naruto sighed as he flipped another page of his book, Intermediate Level Sealing Theory and Composition, by Namikaze Minato. I should have realized that Kakashi sensei would be late. I wonder why I thought he would be on time just because. It was our first C-rank mission as a team. He'll be here, Tajuna-san. However, Kakashi sensei is always at least 3 hours late to anything. In fact, if he could, I'm sure he'd be late to his own funeral. Tajuna looked over at Naruto with incredulous expression. You can't be serious, can you? I'm afraid he is. Sakura said miserably, for once agreeing with Naruto. Just once I wish he was on time, she thought. Cha. Maybe we need to beat the crap out of him to teach timely manners. Inner Sakura ranted. HN, Sasuke said, grunted. Naruto flipped another page of his book. Anyways, he should be here in 3, 2, 1. Now. Yo. Kakashi said with a wave as he appeared in a puff of smoke. You're late. Sakura screeched, forcing everyone within a 50-foot radius were forced to grab their ears in pain. So what's the excuse this time, Kakashi? Asked Naruto as he stood up. Did a black cat cross your path, forcing you to take the long way around? Close, Kakashi. I smiled. There was actually a herd of black cats on my doorstep, so I had to wait for them to leave, then walk around my house 3 times before taking the long way around. You know, to stave off the bad luck. Liar! Sakura yelled, once again knocking everyone off their equilibrium as their ears rung in pain. Anyway, let's get going, Kakashi said, picking out his ear as he began to leave. The others soon followed him. However, Kakashi stopped when they got several feet from the gate when he noticed they were missing one. Naruto? Kakashi asked as Naruto had turned around and was looking at the gate. Something wrong? Naruto shook his head. No. Nothing's wrong. It just feels strange. This is the first time I've ever set foot out of the village. He looked like he was about to continue, but shook his head and turned to face the others. Well, let's get going. Kakashi looked at Naruto curiously as the blonde passed before shrugging and heading out. The team began moving through the countryside of Hinokuni. Naruto in front, Sakura and Sasuke on the left and right respectively, and Kakashi taking up the rear. For a while Naruto looked around at the environment, taking in all the sights he could. However, as time wore on, his excitement about being out of the village began to fade. True, he was out of the village, but everything looked the same. All he saw were trees, trees and more trees. Eventually the green simply lost its splendor. Of course, we're still in Hinokuni. Naruto clicked his tongue in annoyance. I should have suspected this. Deciding to amuse himself, Naruto looked behind him towards his teammates. Sasuke was brooding like he usually did, something that Naruto realized would probably never change. Kakashi was reading his porn like normal, the only noise coming from him being the occasional perverted giggle. And Sakura was chattering away, trying to talk to Sasuke and convince the raven-haired Avenger to go out with her. Yet even that stopped when she seemed to realize that Sasuke wasn't even paying attention to her. Naruto sighed. Gah! This is so boring. I thought being out of the village would be cool and exciting. He knew he shouldn't be thinking that way. Shinobi were supposed to always remain calm, cool and collected, something Naruto had been striving to do ever since the Mizuki incident. But even he had his limits. And right now his were reaching the breaking point. Trying to find some way to pass the time, Naruto reached into his pouch and was about to take out his book again, when he stopped. Having spent as much time as he had with Anko in the forest of death, Naruto had developed what he had taken to calling his danger sense to a finely honed point. Even the most minuscule trace amounts of killing intent could be detected by him. And right now there was a bit leaking from somewhere. Looking around, Naruto tried to find the source of the killing intent. It wasn't quite large enough to pinpoint, being fairly minuscule, so he was forced to really rely on his eyes. As he continued walking, he spotted a puddle in the middle of the road. Odd, it hasn't rained for several days. Naruto thought with a frown. He looked back to see Kakashi eyeing the puddle before moving on. Naruto shrugged and turned back towards looking in front of him, wondering if he was just being paranoid. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto whirled around when he heard the shriek, and saw Kakashi with a pair of shuriken-linked chains, which were being held by 2 figures. The 2 ninja, who were obviously ninja by the headbands on their heads, yanked the cables, resulting in Kakashi getting torn to shreds, sending body parts and blood flying everywhere. For a split second Naruto hesitated as he entered his first real battle. This gave the 2 shinobi, both of whom were wearing water-breathing apparatus, tattered black cloaks and a pair of wicked-looking claws with shuriken chains attached to them, to charge forward. He watched as Sasuke threw a shuriken and kunao into the chains, making them stick to a tree, then running up towards the pair before he jumped up and kicked both of the two ninja attached to them in the face. The pair released their chains and charged. Thankfully Naruto had been expecting some kind of attack, so even though he was surprised, he managed to snap out of the fugue state he had been in from seeing his sensei die. One of the Chunin charged at Naruto, attempting to take him out with his gauntlet-covered hands. Naruto ducked under the claw swipe and struck the gauntlet's wrist, redirecting the attack. This seemed to surprise the man, allowing Naruto to get in close. Before the Chunin had a chance to react, Naruto was in his face, grabbing his head with both hands before bringing the man's face down and smashing it into his knee. The man was sent stumbling back in a daze, his face mask dented from Naruto's blow. It was because of the man becoming slightly disoriented that Naruto was able to close the distance again, smashing several hard punches into the man's rib cage. When Naruto sent a chakra-enhanced double punch to the chest, the man flew backwards, smashing into the tree that was behind him and falling to the ground. Naruto stared down at the unconscious man in a slight stupor. However, he was snapped out of it when he heard a voice somewhat behind him. "Yo!" Turning around, Naruto saw Kakashi standing there with the other ninja that had attacked them placed in a headlock. "Kakashi-sensei, you're alive," Sakura said in relief as she lowered her kunao. "Of course," Kakashi said, pointing over to where he had died. Naruto and the other genin saw the remains of a log. "He used a kawarimi," Naruto realized with some shock. "Then that means the blood and guts we saw was some kind of genjutsu to make it look like he had been violently killed. But what for?" "Excellent job in defeating the enemy, Naruto, Sasuke," Kakashi said, turning his head towards Naruto. "Are you okay? I saw you freeze up there for a moment." "Huh?" Naruto blinked a moment before the question registered. "Oh. Yeah, I'm fine, I was just surprised that you had died against these two." He gestured to the two unconscious genin. Kakashi nodded. "I'm glad to hear that. Also, you might want to take care of that wound." Kakashi pointed to a cut on Naruto's forearm. Kiri ninja have been known to poison their weapons. "Huh. I must have gotten it when I swatted that guy's attack away," Naruto thought, cursing himself for being so careless. Sighing, he pulled out a kunao and without any hesitance stabbed himself right in the wound to let the poison bleed out. "Naruto, what are you doing?" Sakura screamed as she and everyone else widened their eyes at seeing Naruto deliberately injure himself. Naruto just looked up at them and tilted his head. "What? I'm just bleeding the poison out." "Yeah, but now you might die of blood loss," Kakashi deadpanned. "Ha ha ha ha." Naruto laughed as he tore the now ripped bandages off his arm and pulled out some extra bandages that he kept in his pouch. "Oh, you don't need to worry about measly little wounds like this, sensei, I've had wounds worse than this." Naruto shuddered as he finished wrapping his bandages around his forearm. "Far worse," he mumbled, remembering all the times Anko had tried to up his resistance poisoning by having her snakes bite him, as well as the innumerable injuries she had inflicted on him to help his pain tolerance, as she called it. With his hand fixed, Naruto walked over to the two unconscious genin, pulling out some ninja wire as he did so. "I'll take care of these two," Naruto said as he grabbed both genin by their wrists and dragged them over to a tree, where he proceeded to tie them up. "Urg." One of the genin groaned as he woke up as Naruto finished tightening the ninja wire around him. He blinked and looked around before realizing he was tied up. "Well, welcome back to the land of the living," Naruto said with a joyous grin. "Did you have a nice nap?" The genin glared at the blonde. "How did you know of our ambush? Are you talking to me?" the blonde asked. "'Cause if you are, I can honestly tell you that I knew next to nothing about Your ambush. Naruto shrugged. All I could feel was your killing intent, but I couldn't sense where it was coming from. Kakashi-sensei seemed to be onto you though. Naruto paused for a moment as he looked over at Tajuna, who was looking more nervous than usual. Though them being here is starting to make sense, that must be why Tajuna has been so nervous, thought Naruto, having watched the man pacing nervously out of the corner of his eye while the group had been waiting for his sensei. It wasn't that hard, if you know what to look for, Kakashi said with a shrug. Since it hasn't rained in nearly a week, there was no way that a puddle could have lasted very long on a clear day, much less 7. Wait a minute, Tajuna said, looking a bit disgruntled as he glared at Kakashi. If you knew these ninja were going to attack us, then why did you leave it to the kids? He asked, feeling a bit irked. I could have taken them out before any trouble started. But then I wouldn't have learned anything, Kakashi said as he turned a mild glare onto the man. I wanted to know who their target was, and what they were after. What do you mean? Tajuna asked with a stutter. I mean I wanted to know if they after us, ninja attacking ninja. Or if they were after you, the master bridge builder, Kakashi said as his eyes narrowed. When you made your request to Konoha, you asked for standard protection from bandits and highwaymen and the like. You never mentioned that ninja were after you. If we had known this, it would have been designated a B-rank mission or higher. Tajuna looked down in guilt under Kakashi's withering gaze. Our mission was to simply get you to your destination and guard you while you built your bridge. If we had known we would have been fending off attacks from ninja, we would have staffed a different squad and charged for the cost of a B-rank mission. Even if you had your reasons for doing it, lying about a mission is unacceptable. As it is, this task falls beyond the boundaries of the mission we were given. We should go back, Sakura said, the idea of fighting enemy ninja frightening her. This is too much for us, we're not ready for missions like this. Naruto looked over at Sakura with a frown. You can go if you want, but I'm staying. Everyone looked over at Naruto in surprise. It doesn't matter if he lied about the mission, the fact is we've already accepted it. As Konoha ninja we can't go back on our word. Not only would that be disgracing ourselves and Konoha, but it could also cause people to lose faith in our village if we run at the first sign of trouble. Naruto looked over at Tajuna. You don't have to worry about me leaving, even if they do. You think you could protect him yourself? Sasuke snorted. Please, you would be lost without someone like me watching your back. I won't let this opportunity slip by. I will prove my strength here. So that mean you're in team? Asked a grinning Naruto. Sasuke just looked at the blonde with a smirk. Kakashi looked between the two genin and sighed. Why was it that they only seemed to get along when it looked like a fight was brewing? I guess that means we're continuing. Still, the next enemy we run into won't be low-level genin. It will be a jonin like myself. In the middle of a large forested area, there was a large fortified structure being held between two trees. Inside that structure, two individuals were having an important meeting. In a room, a tall man with bandages covering half his face lounged in a large throne-like chair. To his left was one of his subordinates, awaiting his instruction. In front of him was a rather short fat man in a business suit, with frazzled gray hair and sunglasses on his face, despite how dark it was inside. What? The short-suited man shouted. You're telling me you failed? I paid a lot of money to hire your group. I thought you were supposed to be some hotshot former ninja assassins. If this is all you're capable of, quit your whining. The tall man growled as he hefted a large Zanbato-style sword up with one hand, even though it was nearly as tall as he was. Bringing it around, he pointed it at the now pale businessman. Next time I'll be going to finish them myself. And this sword, Kyubikari Haucho, head cleaver, will be the last thing they see. Are you sure about that? Asked the now nervous man. It seems that the target has a high-level ninja guarding him, and now that the Akuma brothers have failed, they'll be on guard for another attack. It will take some extreme skill to. Just who do you think you're dealing with? The man growled, not lowering his sword as he glared at the small fat man. I am Momoichi Zabuza, the Kirigakure no Kaijin, demon of the hidden mist. It was later in the day, and Team 7 along with Tajuna had found a small clearing off the road to Nami no Kuni to rest for the night. Kakashi had made his students split up and prepare the camp. Suzuki had been charged with getting lumber and starting a fire, while Sakura had been ordered to prepare the tents. Naruto was the one who had gotten them some food, catching a few fish from a nearby stream. After dinner, Kakashi looked at his students. Since this mission is now more dangerous than we initially thought, we are going to be taking 2-hour watch shifts. Naruto, you're going first, Suzuki you go second, Sakura will go third and I will go last. This was a standard watch procedure, letting the students go first so they could have more sleep when they started off again. Sure thing, Sensei. Naruto stood up and went to perch himself on a large rock a little ways away so he could keep watch. The rest of you make sure to get some sleep while you can. Kakashi began moving to his tent. Soon everyone else had started heading off too. Naruto put his hands up in the ram seal as he sat down cross-legged, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A few clones puffed into existence only to scatter as soon as they were formed, moving off several dozen feet away in all directions and hanging into random objects and animals. Closing his eyes, Naruto began using a unique exercise he had learned in a book on chakra concepts and theories. The exercise was called Chakra Myaku, Chakra Pulse, and as the name suggested, the user sent out a pulse of chakra in all directions. This gave Naruto something akin to a 360-degree view similar to the sonar pings a bat used with sound waves. This had two purposes. The first was to allow Naruto to remain alert to everything around him, and the second was to use it as a basic chakra control exercise by slowly lowering the amount of chakra used while maintaining the amount of distance he could pulse his chakra. It wasn't quite as effective in the middle of a forest as it would be elsewhere since the foliage reduced its efficiency, however that was what the clones were for. Can I help you, Ajisen? Asked Naruto as Tajuna climbed onto the boulder he was sitting on. His eyes were still closed and he had not bothered to even look in Tajuna's direction as he remained perfectly still, something that had taken nearly 2 weeks to accomplish. Shouldn't you be in bed by now? An old goat like you needs their rest. Hardy har hargaki. Tajuna grumbled a bit about disrespectful brats for a few moments, causing Naruto's lips to quirk upwards in a small smirk. He was silent for a moment before letting his curiosity get the better of him. I was just wonderin', why did you agree to come with me knowing I had lied? Isn't that something you should be asking Kakashi-sensei? Asked Naruto. Your sensei wasn't the one who first agreed to continue the mission, Tajuna pointed out. Naruto conceded the point with a nod. He was silent for a few moments and Tajuna was unsure if the blonde would talk or not. Finally, forsaking and abandoning people in need is both dishonorable and cowardly. Below courage there is nothing. Those are the words from the Yondaime Hokage. Finally, the blonde opened his eyes and looked over at Tajuna. They are words that I do my best to live by. 3 days later, when Team 7 got to the coast, it was to find a thick fog had rolled in. Tajuna had led them to a man who had been willing to offer them passage across, and now the 6 of them were inside a motorboat to cross the waters and head into Nami no Kuni. Currently the motorboat was off. However, and the boatman was rowing, so as not to attract attention from anyone that may want to cause their group harm. Naruto, who was at the front of the boat, was staring into the thick fog. There's something odd about this fog, he thought to himself. Even for morning fog it seems to be really thick. Of course, since this was his first time being in a coastal region, he supposed he might just be overthinking again. "This fog is pretty thick," Naruto commented out loud, wondering what the others thought of it. "Yeah, it's actually hard to even figure out where we're going," Sakura said, actually agreeing with Naruto. "I mean, the only thing I can even see is the water." She looked off the side of the boat and into the rippling water. "We'll be able to see the bridge any minute now," the boatman said in a quiet voice. "As soon as you set foot on the other shore, you'll be in Nami no Kuni." As if on his words, the fog parted where they were going to reveal the bridge. The group looked up as the shadow of it loomed over them. Even at the angle they were seeing it at, the large unfinished bridge was a sight for the group of genin. Naruto whistled. "All right, I have to admit I'm impressed, Tajuna-san." "Thank you," Tajuna said with pride in his voice. "I mean, I didn't think a drunk old man like you was capable of building something like this," Naruto continued. Tajuna's shoulders slumped a bit. "That wasn't very nice." Naruto snickered. "You guys need to keep it down," the man hissed. "The whole point of moving through the dense morning fog is so that we wouldn't be spotted. But it doesn't do any good if they hear us. Why do you think we're going like this? Turning off the motorboat and rowing?" Naruto looked over at the boatman with a frown. "And who would they be?" he asked. "Naruto brings up a good question," Kakashi said as he turned to Tajuna. "I think we've been more than patient enough, Tajuna-san. Before we reach the pier, I need you to provide some answers. The men who are after you, I need to know why." His voice took on a deeper tone, signifying how serious he was. "And if you don't tell us, I'll have to end the mission when we drop you ashore." That was the technical limit of this assignment, protecting you until you reach Nami no Kuni. Guarding you until you finish the bridge was left to my discretion. Tajuna unslumped himself and looked up at Kakashi. "All right, I'll tell you." "No, I want to tell you." "You are correct, this is beyond the scope of your original mission. The man who is after my life is very short man, who casts a very long and dangerous shadow." "A very short man?" questioned Naruto with a look of curiosity etched on his face. "So we're facing off against someone who would be better off in a circus or something?" Kakashi ignored Naruto's jibe as he looked at Tajuna. "A man with a dangerous shadow? Who is it? You know of him?" "At least I'm sure you've heard of him," Tajuna sighed. "His name is Gato." "Gato? Gato of Gato Transports and Shipping?" Kakashi asked, a slight widening of his eye the only sign of shock. "The Gato? Rumors place that man as one of the richest men in the world." "Yes. The very same." Tajuna spoke with a slight nod. "On the surface, he appears to be nothing more than a legitimate businessman, however underneath that, the man is one of the rulers of the criminal underworld. He is known for using gangs and hiring ninja to ruin countries and initiate hostile takeovers of other business. He uses his business as a cover for his black market operations, smuggling drugs, contraband, even slaves." "This guy is starting to sound like a grade A douchebag," Naruto commented with a slight growl at hearing the man smuggled slaves. "He came to Nami no Kuni a little over a year ago." Tanza ignored Naruto's commented as he gave Kakashi more information. "He had used his wealth and violence to enter our country, and before we even knew what was happening, he had managed to seize control of all our shipping and transport." "That makes sense," Naruto mumbled, getting the attention of everyone else. He blushed a bit but continued nonetheless. "Nami is really nothing more than a string of islands. They have no other way to trade and receive supplies other than their shipping routes. By taking control over that, Gato effectively controls everything." The night before, Team 7 had set out on their mission. He had gone over to the library and gotten a geography book and had looked up any information he could on Nami no Kuni. Anko had told him one of the times after their spars that it was important to gather any information he could before a mission began, because there was always a chance that the mission could go to shit, and anything he learned about the mission, whether it was about the client, the climate, both geographical and political, the terrain, or any number of seemingly useless information, could prove to be the key that got him and his team out alive. It was at times like these that he was thankful Anko had quite literally beat information into his head. Since when did Naruto get so smart? A shocked Sakura wondered. I've never heard him talk like this. Cha. He's merely trying to make Sasuke-kun look bad. Inner Sakura shouted. Don't fall for his tricks. He merely wants you to think he's better than Sasuke-kun. Shan-naro. Yeah. You're right. Well, it's not gonna work. Stupid baka. Sakura nodded her head in agreement with her inner conscience. Listen to the dope, trying to sound intelligent. Sasuke snorted, not wanting to admit, even to himself, that he was jealous of how quickly the Naruto caught that fact. Why does he even bother? All it does is make him look like a fool. He really has come a long way, Kakashi thought to himself. He seems to have put in a lot effort to change himself from how he used to be. The incident with Mizuki can actually be considered a blessing in disguise with how much Naruto has grown. I think you'd be proud of him, Sensei. The Gaki is right. Tajuna said with an imperceptible nod. On an island nation, the man who controls the sea, controls everything from finance to government, to our very lives. Anyone who even attempts to stand up to him, disappears. However, even Gato has fears, and the one thing he fears is the bridge. Which of course is why Gato is after you, Naruto said with a nod. Once the bridge is complete, it will connect Nami to the mainland, and you won't need ships to get supplies. Since you're the master bridge builder, you're in Gato's way and he wants to off you. That means that this Gato is the one who hired those ninja, Sasuke said, already planning on what he would do when more ninja showed up. This is my chance to prove my superiority as an Uchiha. That still doesn't answer my question, Kakashi said, as he looked at Tajuna pointedly. If you knew this was going to happen, knew that Gato was dangerous, why did you lie about the mission? That's kind of obvious, isn't it? Naruto asked rhetorically as he thought over some of the things he had read on economics and political maneuvers that could be applied to this situation. If Gato has been here for over a year, that means he's had a year to place a chokehold on all imports that come into Nami. And if he's even half as corrupt as Tajuna is saying he is, then chances are high that he's placed ridiculously high taxes on everything. I doubt this country even has enough for a B-rank mission. Am I right, Tajuna? Asked Naruto, turning to look over at Tajuna. No, you're right, Tajuna said. Our country has never been a major metropolis. And since Gato has come, our country has been reduced to nearly nothing. We are poor to the point of emptiness, even our nobles have very little money, and what they and the rest of us have hangs in the balance of building the bridge. Tajuna sighed, as it is, we poor people are the ones who are paying for this mission, we simply don't have the money to afford a B or higher rank mission. They were too expensive. Tajuna looked up at the group of Konoha ninja. If you drop me off and abandon me when we get ashore, there will be no bridge. Gato will no doubt kill me before I can even get home. A thick silence hung over the ninja as they digested everything. I don't think you need to worry about that, Tajuna-san, Naruto said, getting everyone's attention. I think it was pretty stupid thing to lie about the mission. You knew you would be up against a man who was not adverse to hiring ninja, and that he could afford to hire ninja that were far more skilled than a group of genin. Had you gone to Hokichichi and been honest, he would have been able to arrange some kind of agreement to give you a team of genin or even jonin and set up some kind of payment plan. Tajuna looked down. At hearing that, Naruto sighed and ran a hand through his hair. That being said, I can at least understand why you didn't say anything. You had no way of knowing whether or not we would have helped you if you had been honest, and since we've already agreed to take this mission, and since Imo the Wonder King over here, Naruto hiked a thumb up to point at the scowling Sasuke, was so adamant about us getting a mission, we can't afford to go back without a large black spot on our record. Once again everyone was silent as Naruto spoke, sounding so different than what Sasuke and Sakura remembered him being at the academy. Well, I suppose we can continue the mission, Kakashi said at last. However, if at any point I feel we're out of our league and I order us to abandon the mission, you three will follow my orders to the letter. Are we clear? He asked in a commanding voice. The three genin nodded at their sensei's words. Thank you, Tajuna mumbled as he looked at the group. The boat continued to move silently as they made their way closer to Nami. We're almost there, the boatman said. Just under this archway and past the mangroves and we'll reach the pier. Everyone snapped to attention as they made their way under a large archway, passing through it and coming out on the other side to a small inlet lake. There were several buildings around the bank, and a few sparse trees located around and in the water. As they got closer to the shore, the group found that the buildings were mostly run down, with rot and fungus spreading along them. Some of the buildings even looked burned out, no doubt from Gato's thugs using violence to bring the population under Gato's heel. The boat made it to the dock and the Konoha ninja plus one master bridge builder got off. After Tajuna and the boatman exchanged farewells, the group set off again. For the most part it was silent, only the breathing of the group being heard. Naruto was taking point again, while Sakura and Sasuke were located on either side of Tajuna. Kakashi was taking up the rear, his book safely stashed away in his pocket due to the seriousness of the situation. As they continued moving, Naruto stopped and looked into a bush that rustled a bit. Naruto? Kakashi asked, looking at his student. Something wrong? No. Naruto shook his head and continued moving. They stayed moving again, with Naruto paying extra attention to their surroundings. As they continued walking, Naruto paused and threw a kunai into a bush, startling the other genin and Tajuna. What the hell, Naruto? Sakura hissed. Why do you have to try and scare us like huh? Naruto walked right past Sakura and moved the bush branches aside, only to see a small white rabbit shaking like a leaf with a kunai stuck right above its head. Naruto baka! Look what you did to this poor rabbit! Sakura finally yelled, grabbing the rabbit and attempting to soothe its rattled nerves. And stop trying to act cool, dope. Sasuke commented, it only makes you look even more like an idiot. Shut up, team, Naruto said, not giving Sasuke the chance to respond. The blonde turned to look at Kakashi. Sensei, I could be wrong about this, but isn't a rabbit's fur supposed to be brown this time of year? We have the same type of hair in Konoha, and they have a brown coat this time of year. He should know after all, he had skinned at least 30 of the critters. Yes it is, Kakashi said, his mind a whirlwind of activity. A white rabbit at this time year means it was raised indoors. That could only mean that someone used it for Kawarimi. Both Naruto and Kakashi, who had been using chakra to enhance their senses, heard a whoosh. Get down / hit the dirt. The two shouted at the same time. Kakashi grabbed Sasuke and Tajuna, pulling them to the ground, while Naruto did the same with a shocked Sakura. Whoosh 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 thunk. The group looked up to see a large Zanbato stuck in a tree with a man standing on top of it. Said man was shirtless, with two cameo-style armbands and pants. His face was half covered in bandages up to his nose and his headband was tilted slightly like Kakashi's, except not covering his eyes, holding up spiky black hair. The symbol of Kiri displayed on the headband with a slash mark running across the center. Well, if it isn't Hatake Kakashi, the man said, in rough sounding voice. Kakashi stood up and glared at the man. Momoichi Zabuza, the Kiri no Oni. I never would have expected someone like you to be working for scum like Gato. Zabuza shrugged, it pays the bills. Besides, it's all worth it if I get to fight an opponent like you. You know, back when I was in Kiri, you were listed as an A-rank ninja with a kill on-sight order in our bingo book. Hey, take Kakashi, the man who copied over 1,000 jutsu. I had no idea that our sensei was so famous. Sakura thought. Now that the pleasantries are out of the way, why don't you hand over the old man and I'll let you and your genin squad go, Zabuza suggested. I'm sorry, but you know we can't do that, Kakashi glared at the missing ninja. It wouldn't look very good for Konoha if we just let you have him without even putting up a fight. Zabuza shrugged, don't say I didn't try diplomacy first. Grabbing onto the hilt of his blade, Zabuza kicked off the tree. He landed on the lake a little ways away, and made a hand sign. Let's see how well you can do, Kakashi, Kirigakura no Jutsu, Hidden Mist Jutsu, ... A thick mist spread across the land, blanketing the already misted area so heavily that no one could see more than a few feet in front of them. Defensive formation U3. Kakashi ordered his genin squad, causing them to surround Tajuna in a frontal triangle formation with Naruto as the point, Sasuke on the left and Sakura on the right. Zabuza is a master of the Muon Satsujin Jutsu, silent killing technique. If you're not careful you'll be dead before you even know it. Protect the bridge builder and leave Zabuza to me. Kakashi turned back towards the lake and began to lift up his headband. It looks like I'm going to need this. Ah! The Sharingan, Zabuza's voice came from within the mist, his outlined form barely even visible. It's an honor to be facing it so soon. How did Kakashi-sensei get that? Sasuke thought in shock. Only members of the Uchiha clan, my clan, can possibly have the Sharingan. Could he? If Kakashi-sensei is using the Sharingan, then this guy must be really strong. Naruto thought to himself, damn, I wish I had gone over that bingo book Anko gave me. At least then I would know a little bit more about this guy. Still, we both know that the Sharingan is useless if you can't even see. The mist began to thicken even more, making Zabuza disappear completely. Damn it, this mist cuts down the Sharingan's effectiveness. Kakashi cursed, trying to peer into the mist. 8 points. Came the disembodied voice of Zabuza, causing the three genin and Tajuna to freeze as an intense killing intent filled the air. The liver, lungs, spine, clavicle vein, jugular artery, brain, kidney, and the heart. Now, which one shall I choose first? Shit. Naruto cursed. This killing intent is unreal. Way more than anything Anko ever produced. And it makes it even worse with this mist. I can't see and I can barely think straight. The blonde began shaking a bit before catching a hold of himself. Got to remember what Anko taught to counteract the affects. Taking a deep breath, Naruto pushed out his chakra to counter the killing intense effects like Anko told him to do. He instantly felt a little better, though it was still affecting him some. This killing intent, Sasuke thought, struggling to breathe against the killing intent the two jonin were producing. Is this what a high-level battle between two jonin is like? This suffocating feeling, Sasuke began bringing a kunao to his throat. I don't think I can take much more of it. Sasuke, calm down, Kakashi said as he noticed the trouble his genin were having. I won't let any of my comrades die on me. Sasuke seemed to calm himself down, lowering his kunao. You're all talk, Kakashi. Zabuza appeared right in the midst of the genin and Tajuna. Just as he was about to cleave them all with Kyubikuri Houcho, however, Kakashi appeared right next to Zabuza and stabbed him in the gut, only for the Zabuza that he had stabbed to turn into water. Mizu Bunshin, water clone. Kakashi exclaimed right before Zabuza appeared behind him and cleaved him in half, causing Sakura to scream. However, much to Zabuza's surprise, Kakashi turned into water as well. It's over, Kakashi said as he appeared behind Zabuza and brought a kunai to the other ninja's throat. I see, Zabuza chuckled as he turned his head to look at the copy ninja. You created and switched yourself with a Mizu Bunshin when you made your speech, didn't you? That eye of yours is quite impressive. However, this battle is far from over. Zabuza swung his sword arm around, forcing Kakashi to duck under the powerful swing. Planting his sword into the ground, the Mist Ninja used the leverage it granted him to launch a powerful kick in Kakashi's face. Kakashi flew through the air with Zabuza following after him. The silver-haired Jonin threw some Makebishi spikes as he fell into the water, forcing Zabuza to stop. Makebishi spikes? Zabuza sneered beneath his mask. Come on Kakashi, are you even trying? Kakashi broke the surface of the water and gasped for some air. There's something wrong with this water. Ha! Now I've got you. Zabuza appeared right next to Kakashi, going through a set of hand seals, Suten, Suro no Jutsu, Water Release, Water Prison Jutsu. Kakashi cursed as he found himself trapped within a water prison. He looked over at his students and began to make orders. Run. Take the bridge builder and go. Oh, they're not going anywhere, Kakashi. Zabuza chuckled as he made a Mizu Bunshin to deal with the genin. Get out of here. Kakashi yelled at his students. This battle was over the moment I got caught. He can't seriously think we can run, does he? Sasuke wondered. Even if we managed to escape now, he would just kill Kakashi and come after us. Sasuke ran towards the Mizu Bunshin in an attempt to surprise it. However, as soon as he got in range, the Zabuza clone kicked him in the ribs, sending the young raven-haired genin flying back. Sasuke-kun! Sakura yelled in shock and fear at seeing her crush hit so easily. Sasuke gasped out in pain as he landed on the ground and the air was forced from his lungs. He was about to get up when Zabuza appeared next to him and stepped on him, making the raven-haired genin scream in pain as the Kiri Nuke Nin began to grind his foot into Sasuke's ribs. You kids think you're ninja? Zabuza sneered at the pathetic sight of Sasuke under his foot and screaming in pain. None of you are worthy of the title ninja. When you have stained your hands with as much blood as me, then you can be considered ninja. When you dash futon, Ronkyudan. Zabuza's speech was cut off as a cannonball-sized ball of wind smashed into the Mizu Bunshin, forcing it to disperse back into water. Molecules. You alright, Sasuke team? Naruto asked as he ran over to his teammate and pulled the raven-haired genin up. Yes. Sasuke said, only slightly put off that Naruto had just saved him. Listen, I got a plan. When I tell you, I want you to launch the biggest fireball you can. Naruto said, looking over at Zabuza. So we're going to be working together now? Sasuke asked with obvious sarcasm. Just get ready to launch your fireball. Naruto said, ignoring the sarcasm in Sasuke's voice. Oi! No browsajizan. Are you done rambling now? What did you call me, you brat? Zabuza seethed at the blonde who dared mock him. You heard me, you eyebrowless freak. Naruto shouted with a grin. It seemed Zabuza was sensitive about his lack of eyebrows. You know, if you're sensitive about your lack of brow hair, I know someone who can help you with that. He's got more than enough eyebrow to spare. You little piece of shit. I'll kill you. Zabuza shouted as his face turned red. He created half a dozen Mizu Bushins. The Mizu Bunshin surged forward, running across the water. Sasuke, I could use that fireball. Naruto yelled. Sasuke nodded as he went through some hand seals and sucked in a deep breath. Katon, Gukakyo no Jutsu. A large fireball came out of Sasuke's mouth. Before the Mizu Bunshin could jump out of the way, Naruto finished his own hand seals. Futon, Daitapa. Sucking in his breath, Naruto blew out a large gust of wind that hit the fireball, turning it into a large firestorm. The Mizubunjin didn't stand a chance as the hailstorm of fire hit them, dispelling them and evaporating the water used. Zabuza cursed as he was forced to release the water prison and drop into the water as the massive firestorm washed over his position. "Did we get him?" asked Sasuke as he looked into the water. Naruto scoffed, "Don't be ridiculous, a jonin of his caliber would take far more than that to defeat." "You're right about that, brat," Zabuza shouted as he jumped out of the water, charging over to the two genin. Before he could close the distance, Kakashi jumped in front of him. "Your fight is with me," Kakashi said, his sharing an eye glaring at the Kiri Nukenin. Zabuza glared at Kakashi before jumping back and placing his Zanbeitu on his back. "Fine by me. I'll just kill the brats after I kill you." He began going through several hand seals, moving faster than any of the genin could follow. However, Kakashi could see them, and was managing to copy hand seals that Zabuza was doing with relative ease. Suten, Suiryoidan no Jutsu, Water Release, Water Dragon Jutsu. Both Kakashi and Zabuza shouted at the same time. Two large water dragons with glowing yellow eyes formed in front of the two shinobi, clashed against each other with a loud roar, cancelling each other out. Zabuza growled as he started doing more hand seals. As he did, however, he saw Kakashi begin doing his own hand seals. "What's this? It's like he can read my mind." Kakashi finished, copying Zabuza's hand seals at the same time Zabuza himself was doing them. Zabuza snarled as he attempted to speed up his hand sealing. "I won't let some copycat monkey like you beat me." The two shouted at the same time. As they continued hand sealing, Zabuza stopped and stared as he found something behind Kakashi that shocked him. "Is that me?" as his own figure appeared behind Kakashi in a wavy apparition. "Suten, Daibakufu no Jutsu, Water Release, Great Water Vortex Jutsu." Kakashi shouted, sending a huge vortex of water at a shocked Zabuza. Zabuza was blasted through the air and only stopped when he hit a tree with enough force to the bark. Before anything else could happen, several kunai were launched at the Kiri Nukenin, hitting him in his arms, left leg, and torso. Zabuza coughed up blood, staining his bandages as it leaked out of his mouth. A presence above him made him look up to see Kakashi crouched down on the tree branch with a kunai in his hand. "Can you see the future?" Zabuza asked, not quite sure why he had asked that, only that it seemed to fit with what he had seen. "Yes," Kakashi said, his mixed eyes staring at Zabuza, "and I see your death." Before Kakashi could finish Zabuza off, several senbon pierced the man's neck. Zabuza's eyes rolled up in the back of his head as he fell to the ground. "You were right," said a voice that came from Kakashi's left. Turning, he saw a young person whose gender was hard to tell due to the blue robes that covered his/her form. On the person's face was a mask that Kakashi recognized as a hunter ninja mask from Kiri. This was going to be his final battle. Kakashi grunted as he leapt off the branch and made his way over to Zabuza, checking the man's pulse. "He's dead," he mumbled, turning to look at the hunter ninja. "You're a hunter ninja from Kiri?" The hunter ninja bowed. "I am. I would like to thank you for stalling him for me. I have been after Momoichi Zabuza for a long time." Kakashi sighed as he brought his headband back down over his Sharingan. His genin squad came up behind him, looking at the hunter ninja curiously. The hunter ninja disappeared in a swirl of water, reappearing next to Zabuza's fallen body. Bending down, the hunter ninja picked up Zabuza, pulling the man's arm over his/her shoulder. "Now if you'll excuse me, this body has many secrets, so I need to go and destroy it." Naruto frowned as he watched the hunter ninja disappear in another swirl of water. "I get the feeling I'm missing something here. Kakashi sensei." Turning around, Naruto saw Kakashi fall face first onto the ground, his one visible eye closed. Rushing over to him, Naruto placed a hand on his neck. "He's alive," Naruto said to Sakura, who had come up to them. He's just unconscious. Signs indicate chakra exhaustion. Sighing, Naruto stood and brought his hands in the ram seal, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Two clones puffed into existence and lifted Kakashi by the arms and legs. Tajuna-san, we need to get to your home now. Think you can lead us there? Asked Naruto. Yeah, Tajuna said as he tried to get his bearings. It's just this way, follow me. Sasuke, you take point, Naruto said. Sasuke looked at him for a moment before deciding to comply. Normally he wouldn't, but being point would allow him to prove his superiority, in his mind anyway. The three Konoha genin followed Tajuna as he led them to his house, with the two clones carrying the unconscious Jonin following close behind. Kirigakura no Jutsu, Hidden Mist Jutsu, a C-rank supplementary jutsu. Normally used by Kirigakura, Hidden Mist Village, ninja, this jutsu creates a thick fog by having the user saturate his/her chakra into the moisture in the air. Some of the more experienced practitioners of this jutsu can create a mist so thick that even Jujutsu, like the Sharingan and Byakugan, can be fooled. Mizu Bunshin, water clone, C-rank clone jutsu. The user infuses chakra into the water in order to create a clone in the user's likeness. Unlike regular clones, this one is not an illusion but a solid copy made from water. The clone is always created with 10% of the user's strength no matter how many are made. Unlike Kage Bunshin's, this clone does not pass experience onto the user when dispelled. Suten, Suiryoidan no Jutsu, water release, water dragon jutsu, and A-rank attack jutsu. The user creates a water dragon that will attack the enemy it is directed against. This jutsu is one of the few water attacks that are truly devastating, normally tearing through a person as if they were paper. The size and strength of the jutsu is relative to the control one has over water elemental manipulation and the amount of chakra they put into it. Suten, Suro no Jutsu, water release, water prison jutsu, a B-rank supplementary jutsu. This jutsu is used to capture opponents by placing them in a circular prison made of water. In order for this jutsu to be used, the one casting it must always have at least one part of their body in the water in order to continuously channel chakra into it. Suten, Daibakufu no Jutsu, water release, great water vortex jutsu, and A-rank attack jutsu. Creates a powerful vortex of water that can blast anything and everything in its path. This jutsu is extraordinarily destructive and can cause mass amounts of property damage and slash or blunt force trauma to an opponent. After the battle, the group arrived at Tajuna's house. Said house was a decent-sized two-story house that was sitting on a dock just a little over the ocean. As the group walked up to the house, Tajuna banged on the door. Tsunami. It's me, open up. The group could hear a quick shuffling of feet on the other side before the door opened, and a beautiful woman in her mid to late 20s with dark blue shoulder-length hair and brown eyes could be seen. She was wearing a pink sweater, and a blue skirt. Tio-san, the woman said in relief as she saw him. Thank goodness you're all right. Of course I'm all right. Tajuna said with a large relieved smile at seeing his daughter. It's all thanks to these ninja here. Tsunami looked over Tajuna's shoulder to see the group with him. Thank you very much, she said with a bow before she noticed the group of triplets carrying Kakashi, who was still completely out of it. Oh my. Is he all right? She asked. He's fine, Naruto said, deciding to take charge for the moment. He just has a bad case of chakra exhaustion. Speaking of, is there anywhere we can let him rest? Of course, Tsunami said as she opened the door the group to enter. I will show you to the bedroom where you can put him. Naruto nodded as he and the other genin followed Tsunami up a set of stairs and into a hallway. She opened the first door on the left and let the Naruto clones in. Walking over to a closet in the room, she opened it and grabbed a bedspread that she set out on the floor. Here you are, she said. Thank you. The clone in the front replied as they set Kakashi down. With their job done, the two clones dispelled surprising Tsunami, who looked at the smoke where the clones had been in surprise. What the? Cage Bunchin, Naruto answered as he leaned against the wall next to window, making the woman turn to him. They're just solid copies of myself. Figuring it was some kind of ninja thing, she nodded her head as Sakura sat down next to their sensei. Are you going to be alright, sensei? She asked. Yeah. Kakashi said in a somewhat strained voice, having woken up sometime in the past few minutes. I just won't be able to move for a week or so. What? Sakura said in surprise. It's because of the Sharingan, Naruto said as the others looked over at him. It's an amazing bloodline, but because Kakashi-sensei isn't an Uchiha, it puts a great deal of stress on his body, since it's not built to harness the Kekkei Genkai's full potential. Sakura and especially Sasuke looked surprised by Naruto's knowledge. Sakura looked from her blonde spiky-haired teammate to her sensei. The Sharingan sounds like an amazing bloodline, but if it puts that much stress on the body, I guess you have to think before using it. Dope, Sasuke said, getting the blonde's attention. How do you know so much about the Sharingan? Naruto looked over at Sasuke and shrugged. I've been reading a lot lately. Naturally, reading about Konoha's most famous clans was one of my subjects. While there is little about how the Sharingan works, I know the basics. Like how the eyes are able to see through and copy any ninjutsu, genjutsu, or taijutsu and be able to turn any technique back on the original user. Aside from that, Kekkei Genkai come from specific families, or clans. If someone who is not a member from a clan gets a bloodline such as the Sharingan implanted in them, it simply can't be used properly. I'm guessing that's why Kakashi-sensei has to keep his eye covered, right, sensei? Kakashi tried nodding, but when he found it impossible just spoke. That's right, Naruto, I'm pleased to see you're studying so hard. He. Naruto gave an embarrassed laugh as he rubbed the back of his head in a sheepish manner. The group was silent for a little while after that, thinking about all that had happened and what their next move should be. Well, at least we defeated that strong ninja this time, Tajuna said with a relieved laugh. So we should be safe for now. By the way, who was that masked kid? Asked Sakura. She had remembered reading something about ninja who wore those masks before. That's the mask worn by Kirigakuru's special hunter ninja team, Kakashi answered. They are also known as body erasers. Their duty is to completely dispose of a body without a trace. A ninja's body within it has many secrets that can be revealed with a proper examination of a medical ninja. Things like ninjutsu, different chakra types, herbs, and many other secrets that will reveal things about the village. For example, if I died, the secrets of the Sharingan could be revealed. If you're not careful, there's the danger that the enemy will steal your jutsu. Naruto nodded to himself. He had recently read about the hunter ninja forces. Konoha had its own force of hunter ninjas, designed to hunt down missing ninja and kill them before they could become a problem. That's why the hunter ninja are around. The rest of the group turned towards Naruto. In order to protect the secrets of their village, hunter ninja have the jobs of going into the world and hunting down the missing ninja of their village. They're specialists who guard their village's secrets. So that Zabuza has been chopped up and disposed of? Sakura asked with a pale complexion as she spoke. Scary. Naruto shook his head. I'm not so sure. What do you mean? Asked Sakura as she looked over at Naruto. What are you not sure about? Naruto frowned as he remembered what he had read about hunters. When a hunter ninja disposes of a body, it's supposed to be on the spot. That way no one has a chance to discover the secrets they might hold before they can get rid of it. They usually cut off the head and then burn the body with a katon jutsu. However, his mind went back to their encounter with the hunter ninja. However, that ninja didn't do that. instead he left with the body in tow. On top of that, he used Senbon to kill the target, having spent as much time as he had with Tenten. Naruto knew a lot about ranged weaponry. After all, when someone is throwing weapons at you and has a huge fetish for said weapons, one tends to learn more than they initially bargained for, and it didn't look like he was carrying any kind of heavy equipment that could decapitate a person. It seems odd that a hunter ninja would be so ill-equipped to deal with the disposing of a body. You're absolutely right, Naruto, Kakashi said, sounding proud that his genin had been able to figure all of that out. I've been wondering about that myself. And I have a theory. Within the forest just a little ways from where Zabuza had fought the Konoha ninja, the hunter ninja looked over Zabuza's body. Reaching into a pouch, the hunter took out a toolkit and unrolled it on the ground. The ninja grabbed a pair of clippers and brought them towards Zabuza. First I'll cut off the mouth cloth and drain some of the blood. The ninja mumbled, carefully bringing the clippers to bear near Zabuza's clothed face. Just before the hunter could cut the cloth, Zabuza's hand shot up and grabbed the hunter's arm. That's all right, I'll do it myself, Zabuza said in a slightly gasped breath. Oh. The hunter said, sounding both surprised and amused. You've already come back to life. Zabuza grunted as he grabbed the senbon in his neck and gave them a yank. Damn, you sure are rough, he grunted as he pulled them out. Oh. You're pretty rough yourself, pulling them out like that. You may really die if you pull them out so carelessly, the hunter said. Zabuza just gave a non-committal grunt. How long are you going to wear that stupid mask? He asked. I like this mask, the fake hunter replied, it reminds me of the old days. Despite that, the fake hunter reached up and pulled the mask off, plus it was useful for this act. If I hadn't saved you, you would have definitely been killed. Zabuza glared at his partner, and decided to let the fake hunter know just what he thought of the hunter's selection of pressure points. If you were going to put me into a temporary death, you didn't have to aim for the neck, you know. You could have used a safer acupuncture point. The Kiri missing ninja put the cloth back around his mouth. You're brutal as always. His partner merely smiled, you're right. But we both know how you would get angry if I scarred that flawless body of yours. And the neck doesn't have much muscle, it's easier to hit the acupuncture point there. The fake hunter examined Zabuza's vitals to see how much damage was done to him that both the fight and the temporary death state had given him. The man had a lot more wounds than usual due to who he was fighting, but the hunter determined he would live. You shouldn't be able to move much for about a week. But, knowing you, you'll probably be up and about sooner. Zabuza at his partner out of the corner of his eye and smirked. You're so pure and clever, that's what I like about you. Of course, his partner smiled, I'm just a kid after all. The fake hunter ninja stood up and looked around, the mist has cleared. Looking down, the fake hunter ninja asked a question, will you be alright, next time? Zabuza's eyes narrowed and let out something aching growl. Next time I will defeat the Sharingan. What do you mean Zabuza's alive? Sakura screeched, causing everyone to hold their ears and the windows to rattle. Keep your voice down, Sakura, Kakashi said before clearing his throat. Think about it, the hunter ninja used senbon to kill Zabuza. But unless it hits a vital organ, the probability of actually killing someone is low. It's an item used by doctors in acupuncture. Hunter ninja have a thorough knowledge and understanding of the human body. So putting a person in a momentary death-like state would be easy. Let's look at the facts. First, he carried away the body of the much heavier Zabuza. Second, he used a weapon that has a low probability of killing. So basically what you're saying is that Zabuza is alive, Suzuki stated, though it almost sounded like a question. Kakashi nodded, yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. The announcement that Zabuza was alive seemed to have varying levels of effect on those in the room. Sasuke was smirking, thinking he would get another chance to fight a strong opponent and prove himself as an Uchiha, as well as brining himself one step closer to attack it. Sakura looked around in worry, not feeling anywhere near as confident as her crush. She knew that she had no chance of helping in a fight like this. Naruto was surprisingly deep in thought, replaying what he had witnessed in Kakashi's battle with Zabuza. He knew that he had no chance against a man who could go toe-to-toe with his sensei. What's more, Kakashi had almost been defeated, and were it not for the timely intervention of him and Sasuke, Zabuza underestimating then and a shitload of luck, they would have definitely lost. "Don't you think you're overthinking this?" asked Tajuna, now worried that really strong ninja might actually be coming back. "I mean, hunter ninja are supposed to kill missing ninja. One of the shinobi rules is to always prepare for the worst possible scenario," Kakashi stated. "And even if Zabuza is dead, it just means that Gato is likely to hire an even stronger ninja. Either case point to the fact that we need to prepare." "But, what can we do?" asked Sakura, frightened of even the thought of seeing Zabuza again. This whole mission had gone from bad to worse for her, and she was starting to feel completely overwhelmed. "I mean, we're just genin, and you can barely even move." Hee, Kakashi chuckled as if he somehow found this whole situation funny. "You guys will be doing some training." "Huh? Training?" Sakura said in surprise. "Sensei, what's a little training gonna do? Our enemy is someone you struggled against, even with the Sharingan. Cha! He's trying to get us killed." Inner Sakura shouted. "Sakura, who saved me while I was trapped in that water prison?" Kakashi asked in a slow tone. The question was rhetorical, but it was obvious was point he was trying to get across. "You guys have all improved a great deal." The Cyclopean Jonin looked over at Naruto and gave him an eye smile. "Naruto, you've improved the most." Naruto blushed in embarrassment as he rubbed the back of his head. "Well, I have a lot of people who've helped me." Everyone looked over at him, wondering who was helping him. "He does seem to be a lot better," Sakura thought begrudgingly. "And smarter, the way he was talking, it's almost like he's a completely different person." Of course Sakura was still convinced that Naruto was an idiot who was simply trying to act smart in order to make her Sasuke-kun look bad. "I can't believe the dope managed to do so well," thought a miffed Sasuke, recognizing that what Kakashi said was true. He must be getting some kind of help, otherwise there would be no way the dope could have gotten this good. Who is it though? And why does he have someone teaching him privately, while an Uchiha does not? Obviously this is just training for you guys to get better, Kakashi continued, unaware of the thoughts two of his genin were having. "Even if I train you, you won't be able to best Zabuza without me." "But sensei, if Zabuza is alive he could attack at any time," Sakura protested. "So should we be training?" "Don't worry," Kakashi assured her. "You have to remember Zabuza was injured too, more so than I was. On top of that, he was put into a death-like state. His body will take a while to recover from something like that. So we'll train until then." Finally, Naruto said, breaking out into a grin. "I didn't think you were ever gonna train us, sensei." Naruto, I have trained you guys." Kakashi defended himself. "Yeah, in teamwork exercises, and even then you continue reading that porn of yours." Naruto shot back. "I'm talking about training to up our individual skills. Teamwork is important," Kakashi said with a small shrug. "I don't deny that teamwork is important, sensei." Naruto resisted the urge to roll his eyes. "However, we both know that individual ability is just as important. If we can't even fight properly on our own merits, it won't matter if our teamwork is flawless." And you know that had Zabuza not underestimated us because we were kids, Sasuke and I would have been killed before we even had time to blink. Kakashi conceded that point with a nod. Naruto was right, individual skills were important. However, the silver-haired Jonin had wanted to pound the idea that teamwork was the most important aspect of a shinobi. Why do you guys even bother? Everyone turned to the source of the new voice to see a depressed-looking little kid of about 6 to 8 years of age. He had blue coveralls on over a yellow shirt and a fishing hat on his head. Oh. Inari. Where were you? Tajuna asked in greeting, holding out his arms as Inari ran to give him a hug. Welcome back Grandpa, Inari said, before glaring over at the Konoha ninja. Inari, say hello to these people, Tsunami said, placing her hands on her hips. They're the ninja that protected Grandpa. But Mom, they're just going to die. Everyone looked surprised and or angry when Inari said that. Tajuna and Tsunami just sighed. There's no way they can beat Gato. Man, this kid's more emo than you are, Sasuke team, Naruto commented, grinning when he received an angry grunt from his Uchiha teammate. Listen here kid, there is no way some idiotic, rich, midget bastard is going to be killing us. When Gato tries to get your grandpa here, I'm going to beat his ass back to the age of the Rakuto Sennin. There Naruto goes again. Kakashi sweat dropped at his blonde student's shift in attitude. Genius one moment, loudmouth the next. It's almost like he has some kind of two people inhabiting that body or something. PFT, Inari huffed. You must be some kind of idiot, thinking you can go against Gato. Inari turned around and made his way to the door. If you don't want to die you should leave. Inari, where are you going? Asked Tsunami in a worried voice. I'm going to look at the ocean. Inari said before leaving, slamming the door shut on his way out. I'm sorry about that, Tajuna said in a depressed voice as he looked over at the Konoha ninja. Whatever, that kid needs to get his shit together, Naruto commented. Seriously, anyone who broods more than Sasuke team the emo king of brood over here has a serious problem. Shut up Naruto baka. Sakura yelled as she attempted to hit him. Naruto sighed as he caught the pink-haired girl's fist. How long would it take for her to get he was not going to allow her to hit him anymore? Seriously Sakura, haven't I asked you to stop hitting me like 200 times already? I'm not going to let you hit me anymore, I'm not your personal punching bag. Naruto let go of Sakura's fist, seeing as how she was too shocked to do anything. I swear she never changes, even after this has happened Kami only knows how many times. In the past month his crush had been getting less and less appealing. Naruto did not really know why he no longer really cared for Sakura, except that the more time he spent with her and the more time he spent with her and Sasuke the less he seemed to like her. Of course, it could have been her abusive personality and the fact that she always hit Naruto, but he had been dealing with that for years. He assumed that it was because he was spending time with girls that seemed to actually enjoy being with him. Tenten and Anko actually took time out of their days to talk to him. Oftentimes when he was done training with either one of them they would stay out a little longer and just talk, sometimes they would even go out to get something to eat though that consisted mostly of ichirikus. The blonde shook his head and banished the thoughts. Anyway, I think I'll be going to get some rest. In that case, there are a few extra rooms for you on the right if you want to take one of them, Tsunami said helpfully. Naruto gave her a smile, thanks. He left Kakashi's room, moving to one of the ones Tsunami had said was open. As he passed by Inari's room he heard crying. Curious he stopped and channeled some chakra to his ear. Tio-yu-san. Naruto frowned when he heard Inari's sobbed whispers. Sighing he began walking to one of the open rooms. Again. The next day Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke followed Kakashi, who was using crutches, outside to begin their training. As they stood in the clearing, Kakashi turned around to look at the three. "Okay, we will now begin our training," he informed them. "About damn time, Sensei," Naruto grinned, masking his excitement. "I've been waiting for you to get your sorry ass into gear." "Ma. No need for such language, Naruto," Kakashi said with a sweat drop. "I think Anko's really being a bad influence on him. Now, before we begin training, I want to talk to you about chakra," Kakashi continued on with his lesson. "Why even bother asking us that?" Naruto asked. "We already know about chakra." "Well, since you seem to know it so well, how about you explain what chakra is?" Kakashi suggested. "It's the energy we use to create jutsu," Naruto said in an uncaring manner. "And," prompted Kakashi, trying to get more out of the blonde. "And, nope, that's it," Naruto said with an indifferent shrug. Kakashi's sweat dropped again, definitely a bad influence. "Right, well, I suppose we should just get to training." Kakashi decided it would just be best to get started. "So what are we going to do?" asked Naruto. Kakashi gave all of them an eye smile. "You are going to be learning tree climbing." Sasuke and Sakura face folded, meanwhile Naruto resisted the urge to sigh. "How is climbing a tree supposed to help us get stronger?" Sasuke asked with his perpetual scowl in place. "So he doesn't know tree climbing yet?" Naruto thought with a smirk. "This should be fun to watch." "I'm glad you asked, Sasuke." Kakashi I smiled at his raven-haired student. "Aside from the simple fact that you'll be able to fight on a vertical surface, tree climbing also helps in your chakra control." Kakashi crouched his way over to one of the trees in the clearing. Bringing up a hand sign for focus, he channeled chakra to the bottom of his feet. He put one foot on the tree trunk, then his other foot. Soon enough he was walking up the tree, seemingly defying gravity. He stopped when he climbed onto a branch and hung upside down. Looking down he saw Sakura and Sasuke looking shocked, while Naruto looked bored. Could he already know this exercise? Kakashi asked as he stared at Naruto. The feet are considered to be the hardest place to channel chakra to. Therefore if you can master tree climbing, you can master any jutsu, theoretically at least, Kakashi explained. "Hey Sensei, I already know this exercise," Naruto informed them, causing Sasuke's eyes to narrow and Sakura's to widen. "I see. Well then why don't you show me?" Kakashi gestured to a tree on his left. Naruto shrugged as he walked up to the tree, subconsciously channeling chakra to his feet as he began to defy gravity and climb up. He continued walking until he was a little higher than Kakashi and then like him hung upside down on a branch. Naruto looked over to Kakashi and gave him a cheeky grin. "See? You may now bask in the greatness that is Uzumaki Naruto. Well, it looks like you've got a head start on chakra control." Kakashi figured this must have been one of the many things that Anko decided to teach him. "Very well, since you seem to be so good at it, you can teach it to your teammates." "What?" Sakura and even Sasuke yelled. Naruto narrowed his eyes at how his sensei was trying to dump his work on him. "Or how about I leave a cage bunch-in with them and you help me with something I've been working on?" Kakashi actually looked surprised at the suggestion. However, he thought about it for a second before nodding. With his chakra nearly depleted he could not do much more than what he was doing now, but he may be able to give his students some advice. "Very well, I don't see a problem with that. Though I need to see what you're working on in order to help you." Nodding his head, Naruto released the chakra from his feet and flipped over in air, landing on his feet in a crouch. "That's fine, Sensei." Cage Bunshin no Jutsu, two clones appeared beside Naruto before bringing themselves over to each of his teammates. "These clones of Naruto's will help you learn this exercise," Kakashi said as he threw two konao at the two genins' feet. "Use those konao to mark your progress. I suggest you start by running Nodding to himself, he walked back down to the ground as well. So why don't you show me what you're working on? He suggested as he looked at his blonde student. Naruto nodded, all right, but we should probably go somewhere else, that way we won't be a distraction to the other two. Naruto didn't wait for an answer before he started walking. After a few seconds, Kakashi shrugged, pulling out his book and hobbling along after the blonde. Sasuke watched Naruto go with a seething expression. How can the dope be so much better than me? I've always been the best, an elite member of the Uchiha clan. Yet Naruto knows something I don't. Sasuke looked over at a tree and glared at it, as if hoping it would spontaneously combust. I won't let the dope beat me. Picking up a kunai, Sasuke ran at the nearest tree. When Naruto was sure that he and his sensei were far enough away that the noise he made would not reach his teammates, he turned to his sensei. There are actually two things I want to work on. The first is I want to start working on my wind manipulation training. You're already training in elemental manipulation. Kakashi's one eye widened in surprise. He had not realized that Naruto was working on something so advanced. You do know that's a Jonin level exercise. Right. Naruto nodded, I know, but I already have several jutsu in my repertoire. I don't think I need any more, rather, I want to be able to use the jutsu I do know more efficiently. That would make sense, Kakashi nodded his head. This kid is so weird, one minute he's acting like Minato-sensei and the next he's reminding me of Kushina-sen. And you say you're a wind user? He asked. Yes. Naruto took out a piece of chakra paper and made it split with his chakra to emphasize his point. I actually wasn't planning on training in this until I got back home. I was told that Sarutobi Asuma is also a wind user and I was going to ask him for some advice. But if we're going to fight Zabuza and that hunter ninja, I want some kind edge over them. Well, I don't know how far you'll be able to get. Kakashi looked thoughtful, knowing the boy would be able to get a decent start on his elemental training due to his cage bunsins, but he would not likely be able to complete it. Chances are Zabuza will be back in action within a week. But it certainly can't hurt. Kakashi paused for a minute before continuing, now, I'm not a wind user so I can't actually give you any tips. Thankfully my sensei was, and I got to see him training in his element on occasion. Bending down on the ground, Kakashi picked up one of the fallen leaves and twirled it in front of him. Your first step is to slice a leaf in half using wind chakra. That doesn't seem too hard, though I'm guessing it's a lot harder than it sounds since it's considered a Jonin level training exercise, Naruto mumbled to himself. Kakashi nodded, elemental training is a Jonin level skill. Most shinobi and kunoichis don't even think of starting this until they've been a Chunin for at least a year or two. Got it, Naruto said. He paused and looked at his sensei for a moment before speaking. I was also wondering if you could show me the hand seals for the Shunshin, body flicker, Shunshin at. Kakashi said, once. Again surprised. A Shunshin was only a Chunin level jutsu, but once again it was a jutsu that people didn't bother with until they at least reached Chunin. Yeah, I suppose I can show you the hand seals. Kakashi spoke. After all, it wouldn't hurt any and Naruto may even learn it from just that. If he's anything like his parents he'll have the jutsu down before the week's end, possibly sooner. The Shunshin is simply the ram seal, much like your Kage Bunshin no jutsu, Kakashi explained, however unlike the Kage Bunsins where you imagine multiple clones of yourself. For this you must picture yourself moving at very high speeds. I find it helps if you visualize where you want to be when you use it. Naruto nodded, thanks Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi gave Naruto an eye smile, no problem Naruto. Now then, I'm going to go, check on your teammates. Kakashi said as he hobbled back towards the clearing his two teammates were still in. He's probably just going to and read his porn, Naruto thought with a sigh before perking up. Well whatever, I've got work to do. Brining up his hands in the ram seal, Naruto began channeling mass amounts of chakra. Tajuyokage Bunjin no Jutsu, mass multiple. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Back in the clearing, Sasuke's feet hit the bark of the tree. He channeled chakra into his feet and began to run up. 1 step, 2 steps, 4, 8, 10, 15. He felt the bark blast off of the tree, forcing him to mark his spot before he fell. Sasuke flipped back down and looked at his progress. 15 steps. Damn it! Why is this so hard? You're using too much chakra. Sasuke turned around and glared at the clone. What? He asked in a scathing voice. The clone sighed. He seriously could not understand how the boss dealt with this shit every day. You used too much chakra, that's why the bark exploded. If you use too much, it pushes you off, too little and you slip off. Hey Sasuke-kun. Look up here. Their conversation was cut off as they both turned to the female voice, to see Sakura sitting on top of the first tree branch on her tree. Well, it looks like she's got good control, Naruto mused. Sasuke looked at Sakura with a glare, which did not go unnoticed by the pink-et. Oh no. Sasuke-kun looks mad, and I thought he would be impressed. What am I going to do? Sasuke team, stop glaring at Sakura and get back to work or you'll never be able to get this exercise down. The Naruto clone spoke in an annoyed voice, making the raven-haired genin turn his glare on him. Hey, don't talk to Sasuke-kun like that. Sakura shouted, defending her crush despite said crush giving her a scathing glare that looked like he was trying to burn a hole through her. Sakura. The clone who was helping Sakura shouted. I know you want to be the center of Sasuke's attention, but I need you to focus on your training. Sakura blinked in surprise. Naruto's clone was not acting anything like him. Well, not acting like his idiotic self, she corrected, remembering the way he had been talking recently. They were more like he was when talking about something he was knowledgeable in, something that was still taking some getting used to. But I already did the training. Sakura said with a scowl. Acting smarter or not, there was no way she was going to let Naruto, or his clones, talk to her like that. You saw me, I can already climb the tree. Really? The clone asked with a raised eyebrow. So if I asked you to walk all the way to the top and back down you could do it? Well. Sakura hesitated. Running up to this branch had tired her out as it was, she was not sure if she could actually walk to the top. Exactly, Naruto said as he saw her hesitation to answer. You may have been able to get up there, but that's only because you have such good control of your chakra. However, this also means that there is something else you are lacking. Sakura frowned, not liking how Naruto seemed to be insulting her. Are you insulting me? She asked in a threatening tone. For the love of Kami. Naruto's clone nearly face-palmed. No Sakura, I am not insulting you. Like Sasuke, you have both good qualities and areas where you are simply lacking. Only your situation is reversed. Sakura gave him a confused look. What do you mean? You have perfect chakra control, this is because your chakra reserves are so small, Naruto said with a shrug. It's not all that surprising. Since you come from a civilian family, larger reserves are not in your genetics like it would be if you were an Uchiha. Sasuke on the other hand has larger than average reserves, which equates to a lack of control. I don't think I'm ever going to get used to Naruto actually sounding smart, Sakura thought as she listened. So then, what am I supposed to do? She asked. We need to get your chakra reserves up, Naruto said as if the answer was obvious. The only way to do that is to work on chakra control exercises, but go for endurance, rather than simply learning the exercise. Now, I have a friend who helped me when I learned tree climbing. She said that you haven't mastered tree climbing until you can fight on a vertical surface for 1 hour like you were fighting on a horizontal surface. Naruto said in quote. Sakura gulped a bit, causing Naruto to smile. Don't worry, we're not going to be doing that yet. Right now you don't have the reserves for it. What I want you to do is to start running up and down the surface of the tree. I want you to do this until you're exhausted. You can take a small break when you tire out, but once you're rested, you're going to start over again. Sakura paled a bit at what Naruto was suggesting to her. Seeing this, Naruto decided to add some incentive. If you prove that you can be useful to Sasuke, he may pay more attention to you. That seemed to do the trick as Sakura started running up the tree. As Sasuke glared at him, the Naruto clone sighed. You know, glaring at me won't help you with your tree climbing. I suggest you use a little less chakra than before. I don't need your help, Dobe, Sasuke said. He turned back to the tree and began running up it, albeit he used less chakra. For a while it seemed to be going fine until he slipped. He marked his progress and jumped back down. Looking up, he glared at his mark. It was only 5 steps above the first one. Damn it! Sakura got this in one try. I'm an Uchiha and I haven't even gotten half as far as she has. Sasuke thought as he glared at the tree. You need to relax, Sasuke, Naruto's voice came from behind him. When Sasuke once again turned his glare on him, Naruto sighed. Look, I'm trying to help you. I said I don't need your help. Sasuke shot back. I'm an Uchiha, this is no problem for me. That's not what it seems like from where I'm standing. Naruto shot back. I said I don't need your help, Dobe. Sasuke grit his teeth. Naruto looked at Sasuke for a moment before he shrugged. Fine, I'll just be sitting over at that tree, watching as you continue making a fool of yourself, team. Sasuke narrowed his eyes as the Naruto clone sat down and leaned back against a tree. He turned back to the tree he was working on. He would complete this exercise without the Dobe's help. He was an Uchiha. As Sasuke continued working, none of them noticed the small figure who was staring at them as it left. Within their base, the hunter ninja watched over the bedridden Zabuza, mixing some of the herbs they had. So even you have come back defeated? The hunter ninja turned his head to see Gato standing in between 2 thugs. One of them was shirtless, with a black hakama, and an eye patch on his right eye. His left shoulder was adorned with a vine tattoo pattern while he had barbed wire tattoos running down his arms. The other was wearing a baggy gray jacket festooned with many pockets, a pair of black shorts and a black beanie on his head. Both of them had a hand holding the sheaths of their swords, trying to make themselves look menacing. Zabuza's partner thought the pair looked pathetic with their posturing. It looks like the Kiri ninja are pretty pathetic. Gato continued as he moved into the room, feeling confident now that Zabuza was bedridden. You can't even avenge your men, how pathetic. And you call yourself a devil. Zabuza said nothing, causing both of Gato's Ronin to start unsheathing their blades. Hold on for a moment, Gato held up a hand as he continued walking up to Zabuza. He stopped at the bed and looked down at the Kiri missing ninja. Hey! There's no need to stay silent. Gato began to reach out his hand towards Zabuza's throat, but before it could get there, the hunter ninja grabbed onto the businessman's wrist. Don't touch Zabuza-sama with your filthy hands. The hunter ninja snarled, giving him a glare that looked like it would burn straight through the fat businessman. Hey, let go. Let go, you fucking arg. Gato shouted, only to scream as the hunter ninja snapped his arm, then tossed him back. The 2 Ronin moved their hands towards their swords. However, their eyes widened when they found the hunter ninja between them, holding their own swords against their throats. You shouldn't do that, the hunter ninja said. I'm really pissed off right now. Gato and both his cronies began to sweat. One more chance. Gato shouted as he stood up and shook his unbroken hand in a fist. I'm giving you one more chance to complete this. If you fail, I'll make sure that every ninja in Kiri knows where you are. Gato and his two thugs left, slamming the door on their way out. Haku, Zabuza said, getting his partner's attention. You didn't have to do that. I know, Haku said with a smile, spotting the protrusion in the sheets that showed Zabuza was holding a kunai. But it's still too early to kill Gato. If we cause a commotion right now, the hunters will be after us again. We must be patient. Zabuza sighed. Damn, I hate it when you're right. Right about what? Hearing the voice, Haku and Zabuza looked over as the door opened to see the Akuma brothers walking in. Later that night the Konoha ninja were sitting at the dinner table with Tajuna and his family. Naruto and Sasuke were shoveling food down their throats. Sakura had her head on the table and looked like she was going to pass out. And Kakashi was, much to the displeasure of Tsunami, reading his porn. So Sasuke, Sakura, how's training going? Kakashi asked as he flipped a page of his book. He would have left since he finished eating almost as soon as the food had been set in front of him, having eaten so fast no one could even see him take off his mask, but it would be rude to leave while the others were eating. HN. Sasuke grunted, somehow still able to make that sound despite his mouth being full of food. Ugh, Naruto's a slave driver. Sakura groaned, not even bothering to lift her head up. Out of all the genin she had had it the hardest, since she did not have the stamina of the others. Really? Kakashi asked turning to look at Naruto who was on his fourth serving of rice. So how was your training, Naruto? Naruto stopped shoving food down his gullet and swallowed what he already had in his mouth before answering, well, I'm making some progress, but it's slow going. Naruto frowned as he thought of his training. I'm doing better at learning the Shunshin than elemental manipulation however. What? He's learning the Shunshin? Sasuke questioned in his mind, just adding another reason to be mad at Naruto. That's natural, Kakashi said. After all, elemental manipulation is a Jonin level training technique. Naruto's going through Jonin level training. Sakura wondered in shock. Sasuke seethed even more at hearing that the dobe was learning something that a Jonin normally learned. Standing up he stomped out of the house, slamming the door closed behind him. I should have seen this coming, Kakashi sighed. I probably shouldn't talk about Naruto getting stronger in front of Sasuke. I wonder what crawled up his ass and died. Naruto looked over at the door Sasuke had stormed out of before shrugging. Though, I'm surprised it could with that 20-foot pole he's already got sticking in there. Naruto baka. Don't make fun of Sasuke-kun like that. Sakura shouted, standing up and rearing her fist back to hit the blonde. Naruto just looked at her, do you want me to double the amount of training you're going to be doing tomorrow? Sakura's mouth snapped shut as she sat back down, not wanting to even go through the training the blonde had placed on her again, much less have it doubled. That's what I thought. Naruto nodded his head and turned back to his food. Actually Naruto, Kakashi started. Since you seem to be much farther than your teammates, I was hoping you could go with Tajuna-san tomorrow. Naruto blinked for a few seconds before shrugging, sure thing sensei. It would just mean he had to wake up earlier and get his cage bunshin working. He looked over at Tajuna and gave the man a reassuring grin. Well, it looks like you'll be saddled with the best protection we've got, old man. I won't be letting any of Gato's thugs near you. I'm sure. Tajuna chuckled at the boy's cocksure attitude. After having seen Naruto come up with that plan to help his sensei, he no longer doubted the blonde shinobi. Everyone continued eating for a little while longer, until Sakura noticed something about the picture hanging on the wall behind Tajuna. Hey Tajuna-san, what's with that picture on the wall over there? She asked, pointing to the picture of Tajuna and his family. It looks like a pieces Missing. The three family members tensed at the mention of the picture. An air of sorrow seemed to fill the air. "It's my husband," Tsunami said after several minutes of tense silence, her voice sounding a little choked up. "The man they called the hero of Nami," Tajuna added in a solemn tone. Inari abruptly stood up after hearing that and ran up the stairs. "Inari," Tsunami said in a worried tone. The woman turned on her dad with an angry expression. "Father, you know you can't talk about that man in front of Inari." "What's wrong with Inari?" asked Sakura, feeling depressed for causing such obvious pain to someone else. "Inari, he lost someone he loved, didn't he?" asked Naruto, surprising the others at the soft tone of his voice. "That man, your husband, was important to him, right? There seems to be some kind of story behind this," Kakashi added. "Care to share?" Tajuna sighed as he began to tell his tale. Inari had a friend that he was real close to, a man who was a father in all but blood. They were very close, like a real father and son. Inari was always laughing and smiling back then. Tajuna paused as he clenched his hands. But Inari changed, since that incident with his father. The word courage has been stolen from the people of this land. And from Inari, ever since that day, because of that incident. "That incident?" asked Kakashi. "What happened?" "Before I get to that, I first need to tell you about the man who was called the hero of Nami," Tajuna said. "Hero?" asked Naruto, getting interested hearing more about someone who had done something amazing. "Enough to be called a hero. It was about 3 years ago that Inari met that man," Tajuna said. "Some bullies were picking on him, trying to steal the dog that Tsunami and I had gotten for him. After arguing, they threw the dog into the lake, and then they pushed Inari into the lake as well." "That's horrible," gasped Sakura. "No more horrible than smashing your fist into someone's head for no reason," Naruto mumbled loud enough for only himself and Kakashi to hear. Tajuna ran a hand through his hair as he gave a sigh, and it was worse because Inari couldn't swim. However, right then as Inari was drowning, the pooch remembered he could dog paddle. Inari almost drowned that day, however, a wandering fisherman managed to save him. His name was Kaiza. He was a fisherman who came here to follow his dreams. After that, Kaiza and Inari became very close. It may have been because Inari's real father had died before he could get to know him, but he and Kaiza were inseparable, like a father and son. It was only a matter of time before Kaiza became a part of the family. And Kaiza was also a man the city needed. There was one time that the dam was overrun with water, and was going to flood the city. Kaiza swam out to the dam by himself and closed it. Kaiza was called the hero of the city. And Inari could not have been prouder. Tajuna paused in his story as his face took a darker tone. But then Gato came to the city. "Gato killed Kaiza, didn't he?" Naruto said, causing the others to look over at him in surprise. Tajuna nodded. "Yes, only it was much worse than that. Gato had Kaiza executed in front of everyone, including Inari." Gasps were heard from Naruto and Sakura, both surprised and appalled that Gato could do that. Kakashi just looked down. He already knew of the hardships of the world, and he knew things like this happened more often than others would like to admit. From that day Inari changed. He stopped believing in heroes that day. The day the whole city lost hope. Tajuna trailed off. For a moment the Konoha ninja were silent as they digested what they had heard. It was definitely a sad story, hearing that a child saw his father figure murdered in front of him. Naruto stood up and began making his way towards the door. "Where are you going, Naruto?" asked Sakura. "If you're thinking of training, take the day off," Kakashi said. "If you use up too much chakra you could die." "Don't worry, Sensei, I'm just going to have my Kage Bunshin do some work while I sleep," Naruto reassured his sensei. Kakashi nodded while Sakura and the others looked confused. But I need to get some training in, otherwise I won't be able to prove to Inari that heroes still do exist. Shunshin. This jutsu is a high-speed movement technique, allowing a ninja to move short to long distances at an almost untraceable speed. So, that's it for today. I hope you guys like it and enjoyed the story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel for great stories like this. Thank you, see you soon in next video.